Chapter 2578. The 24th Floor. Li Si and the others searched around, only to find a few Grand Luo who also came from the Divine Mausoleum, and they were now sitting at the same table. How could Ning Beixian go to the 31st floor? He arrived at the Emperor Ancestor City around the same time as we did. There's no way he could sneak into that circle in such a short amount of time, right? Li Si suddenly spoke, looking at Bai Xingxue and the others. That's right. The tortoise-riding old man nodded. Even the prodigies of the three great clans were at most on the same floor as us. Apart from arcane immortals, anyone else who could go to the 31st floor would at least have connections with immortal monarch. How is that possible? Perhaps that kid's providence is too strong. Tai Yuan said flatly. Bai Xingxue said nothing. The others exchanged glances, finding Tai Yuan's words reasonable. They had sensed that Ning Qi's providence was extraordinary when he killed Jiang Wei with a single arrow. Otherwise, how could he have obtained a divine bow that could easily slay a Grand Luo? And the series of events that happened after that love was even more proof of this point. That might be a good thing for us. Since he has such connections, it should be easier for him to destroy the formation eye here, and we would be able to escape the illusory realm. One of the Grand Luo suddenly spoke. The others nodded, finding that it made sense. Leaving the illusory realm was their common goal. They did not insist on who would do it, and they would be more than happy if Ning Qi could destroy the formation eye here. Although they did not encounter life-threatening danger since coming here, there was one thing they knew for sure. If they were injured here, they would really be injured. The tortoise-riding old man from the South Sea had been injured before, and if his injuries were real, would he really die if he was killed by the powerful beings here? They were not sure and did not dare to try. The homeworld in the illusory realm was filled with Grand Luo, and there were even quite a few arcane immortals and Tai true immortals that were rarely seen on the homeworld. If those illusory realms had the same abilities as them, then it would be too dangerous. What if the providence of this divine mausoleum is all in this illusory realm? Bai Xingxue, who had been silent all this while, suddenly spoke. The others were slightly taken aback, their expressions rather solemn. If that was the case, Ning Qi's starting point would be much higher than theirs. At this moment there was no one on the 33rd floor, nor was there anyone on the 32nd floor. As for the 31st floor where Ning Qi was, there were only 20 tables. 3 or 5 of them were filled, and the rest were empty. As soon as Ning Qi arrived at the 31st floor, all the Xian immortals' gazes landed on Ning Qi almost immediately. These gazes carried a sense of scrutiny. The three great clans of Emperor Ancestor City were the Dong clan, Yuan clan, and Zhao clan. Half of these Xian immortals were from these three clans, while the rest had come with the visiting immortal monarch. Because it wasn't time yet, there were many empty seats. A figure walked up to Ning Qi and looked at him with a strange expression. Plate. Ning Qi took out the jade token and showed it to the other party. A trace of respect appeared in the other party's eyes. Seeing this, Ning Qi smiled and picked an empty table to sit down. When they saw this scene, everyone was sure that Ning Qi had really obtained the qualifications to sit on the 31st level. No matter if it was Li Si's group or those who didn't know the situation, their hearts were filled with doubt and shock. The Xian immortals who were a few tables away from Ning Qi glanced at each other and smiled. Those who should be chatting idly, those who closed their eyes, but no one spoke to Ning Qi. Although they were a little curious, they couldn't take the initiative to talk to Ning Qi because of their status. That would be disrespectful. Identity. About 2 hours after Ning Qi sat down, the rest of the Xian immortals started to arrive. When they arrived at the 31st level, they first glanced at Ning Qi, then smiled and greeted their friends. The circle of Xian immortals wasn't big. Those who could sit here basically knew each other. After that, they each chose a seat and sat down. However, there was a tacit understanding that no one sat at Ning Qi's table. Ning Qi was enjoying the peace and quiet. He was thinking that the reason why he was sitting here must have something to do with the Dong clan. So, what method would the Dong clan use to retaliate against him? He couldn't possibly break the rules of Emperor Ancestor City in front of Shingong, Immortal Lord, and the other Immortal Lords, right? The Dong family hasn't. How dare they? Hee. Dong Jingyan raised his head to look at Ning Qi. The corners of his mouth curled into a cold smile. Coincidentally, Ning Qi was looking at him. When their eyes met, Dong Jingyan's cold smile immediately disappeared. He looked at Ning Qi calmly. Ning Qi's lips curled up slightly and he nodded. Dong Jingyan's face turned ashen. He could tell that Ning Qi definitely knew who he was, but Ning Qi was still as calm as ever. If an ordinary celestial immortal were to sit next to a Xian immortal, he would definitely be trembling in fear. Dong Jingyan had a bad premonition. At this moment, another Xian immortal came to the 31st level. He looked extremely young and had a warm smile on his face. He greeted the Xian immortals present and even called a few Xian immortals senior. From this, it could be seen that he was a prodigy who had just entered the Xian immortal stage. Then, he looked around and saw Ning Qi. He walked towards Ning Qi and sat beside him. The rest of the Xian immortals were stunned when they saw this. They looked at Ning Qi in a different way. A look of surprise flashed in Ning Qi's eyes as he looked at the other party. Which immortal monarch's last disciple are you? I'm Lang Ye, the sect master of ancient heaven immortal domain. The man chuckled as he spoke to Ning Qi. The smile on his face was very bright, as if he was the big brother next door. However, the name he announced gave Ning Qi a fright. Ning Qi had guessed wrongly. He thought that Lang Ye was still a nobody. He didn't expect that Lang Ye would appear here and was already a Xian immortal. But on second thought, this was normal. If Emperor Bai and Emosia were really immortal Emosia and Emperor Bai, then Lang Ye would be a Xian immortal. It made sense. Ning Qi looked at Lang Ye and smiled. Junior Ning Qi greets Senior Lang Ye. What senior? I'm also a junior in front of these seniors. Lang Ye smiled and waved his hand. Many profound immortals chuckled and looked at Lang Ye with a trace of satisfaction. He seems to be someone who knows how to curry favor. Ning Qi looked at Lang Ye and thought. Below. Li Si and the rest were not too far away from the 31st level. Therefore, when they heard Lang Ye's name, they were stunned. Chapter 2579. Although Li Si and the others knew that they might run into some extremely powerful figures in the future, they did not take it to heart or deliberately went looking for them. For example, the 9 immortal monarchs on the homeworld, Immortal Emperor Wang Yue, and another mysterious immortal emperor were all present in the future. They had never heard of it before. They suspected that all of this was just an illusion deliberately arranged by the master of the divine tomb. Now that they suddenly heard a profound immortal calling himself Lang Ye, and the sect leader of the Lang Ye sect in the heavenly ancient immortal realm, they were naturally shocked. The profound azure mansion that Li Si was in was one of the strongest powers in the heavenly ancient immortal realms. Although Li Si's father was only a Tai true immortal, in the future, there were many grand luos everywhere. Tai true immortals were already extremely powerful existences in the heavenly ancient immortal realms. Since Profound Azure Mansion was in control of the Profound Azure Mansion, he naturally knew some secret. For example, Lang Ye Immortal Emperor came from the heavenly ancient immortal realm. 99% of the immortals didn't know this, but the Profound Azure Mansion knew. In addition to Li Si, Bai Xingxue and Tai Yuan also seemed to know this secret, so they were more shocked than the turtle-riding old man and the others. When the turtle-riding old man and the others were suspicious, Li Si and the other two were already somewhat convinced. At least, they thought that the master of the divine tomb knew this secret like they did. Although it's just an illusion, but... Li Si looked at Ning Qi who was talking happily with Lang Ye Immortal Emperor. I'm still very jealous. Do you think that the illusions here are so real just because the master of the tomb of the god of sin used them to stop us tomb robbers? Tai Yuan's eyes showed a trace of self-mockery. After hearing his words, Li Si and the others suddenly felt a little shaken. Since they came here, they also thought that the illusion here was the most real one among all the illusions they had ever experienced. Perhaps the master of the tomb of the god of sin had arranged such an illusion that made people unable to distinguish reality from reality. Perhaps there really was another purpose behind this. Let's stop our plan for a while. Tai Yuan transmitted his voice. After a moment of silence, everyone nodded slightly. The plan had to be put on hold. The appearance of Langya Immortal Emperor's illusion made them feel that there might be other hidden fortunes in this illusion. At the same time, Li Xian and Ing Zhenxuan were in a small city in the Juku state. In front of them were 300 children with fear in their eyes. Sister Li Xian, are we really going to waste our time here? Why don't we find the eye of the formation here and see if we can escape from this illusion? Ing Zhenxuan was a little hesitant. There was something she didn't say. Rather than wasting time here, it was better to find Ning Qi and meet up with him first. Let those big shots worry about breaking the formation core. Although the illusion here is a little dangerous, as long as we don't take the initiative to provoke existences stronger than us, these dangers won't come to us. I have an idea. Let's see if it works. If it doesn't, it'll just be a waste. It's just a little time. Li Xian smiled. Ing Zhenxuan laughed bitterly. She knew what Li Xian was thinking, but she felt that it was ridiculous. Teach these illusions to cultivate? Did they think these illusions were real people? All of you, listen up. We sisters will be your masters from now on. You must cultivate well and live long. Perhaps there will be a day when we can meet again in the future. Li Xian glanced at Ing Zhenxuan and smiled. Then, she looked sternly at the 300 children who had no foundation in cultivation. So what if she guessed wrongly? What if she guessed wrongly? As long as one or two of these 300 children lived to see the future, they would all be incredible existences. Lang Yu retracted his gaze from Ning Qi helplessly. He had never met such a troublesome celestial immortal. If a normal celestial immortal was questioned by a Xian immortal like him, wouldn't he be able to explain his ancestors? But Ning Qi was different. No matter how Langya hinted, Ning Qi pretended not to understand. Langya was too lazy to ask anymore. His curiosity would naturally be answered when Shengong Immortal Monarch and the rest arrived. Ning Qi answered Langya Immortal Emperor's questions while looking at the scene in the hall. There were more than 1 million earthly immortals and worldly immortals below. Just one hall alone could accommodate so many people. One could imagine how magnificent this hall was. Ning Qi looked down from where he was. It was filled with a dense mass of people. The servants and attendants of the immortal monarch's estate had already formed groups and walked around the halls on the various floors, carrying stacks of dishes. He reckoned that the Shengong immortal monarch should be arriving soon. On the 31st floor where Ning Qi was at, the remaining tables were almost full. Only his table had 7 to 8 empty seats. The few Xian immortals who came late couldn't sit with the others, so they could only sit opposite Ning Qi and Langya helplessly. Looking at their faces, they seemed to dislike it. It seemed that they didn't want to sit with a celestial immortal. Not long after, silhouettes appeared on the white jade staircase. Their appearance immediately attracted the attention of everyone, including Li Si and the others. That's the patriarch of the Dong family. The patriarch of the Yuan family is here too. And the patriarch of the Zhao family. In addition to the patriarchs of the 3 major clans of the Emperor Ancestor City, there were also more than 30 primordial unity genuine immortals. It was as if they had made an appointment to arrive at the same time. They slowly walked toward the higher part of the 32nd floor and received many gazes of reverence, adoration, and awe. The people of the 3 major clans bowed and stood up. They only returned to their seats after the Tai genuine immortals had taken their seat. The noisy hall quietened down because of the arrival of these Tai genuine immortals. No one dared to speak carelessly anymore. They knew that the arrival of the Tai genuine immortals meant that the immortal monarch and other almighty figures were about to arrive. Ningqi wanted to check the attributes of these Tai genuine immortals and memorize their names. He wanted to see if he could meet one or two of them in the future. However, the system indicated that their levels were too high and could not be checked. This situation had not happened for a long time. Among these Tai genuine immortals, there was one who was obviously from the Dong family. Moreover, his seat on the 32nd floor was the closest to the 33rd floor. Without checking his attributes, Ningqi could guess that he was the patriarch of the Dong family, Dong Yi, who used to be Shingong Immortal Monarch's servant. It was said that this name was given to him by Shingong Immortal Monarch. Even when he established his own clan and established the Dong family, his name was still Dong Yi. When Ningqi was sizing Dong Yi up, Dong Yi glanced at Ningqi as well. He even smiled faintly and nodded in acknowledgement. Ningqi instantly knew that his seat today was probably arranged by Dong Yi. Although Dong Yi wasn't an immortal monarch, based on his relationship with Shengong Immortal Monarch, he was arranged to sit on the 31st floor. However, it was not too difficult. Chapter 2580. Zhuoqiu Immortal Lord has arrived. Sword Immortal Wuji suddenly appeared at the entrance. He sang out loudly and then bowed respectfully. At the same time, an imposing figure strode in. Before the human immortals and earth immortals below could see who it was, the figure flashed and instantly arrived at the 33rd level. There was only one table on the 33rd floor. Even though the human immortals below could not see Zhuoqiu Immortal Lord's face clearly and were a little disappointed, it did not stop the atmosphere from heating up when he arrived. Countless fervent gazes were cast towards the 33rd level. That was an immortal lord. In the vast immortal world, unless the immortal emperor appeared, the immortal monarch was the strongest existence. Eternally immortal. This is an immortal lord? Ningqi looked up at Zhuoqiu Immortal Lord. It was a very ordinary face that was not very recognizable. However, the aura on his body was very mysterious. A faint aura of the great path circulated in his eyes. It was as deep as the galaxy. There was no need to look at his face. Just by looking at his eyes, it was as if they would be deeply imprinted in one's soul, never to be erased. Greetings, Zhuoqiu Immortal Lord. All the Tai perfected immortals present rose to their feet and bowed. As for the Xian immortals, they didn't move at all. It wasn't that they didn't want to move, but they didn't even have the right to bow to the immortal monarch. Have a seat. I'm not the main character today, so you don't have to worry too much about it. Zhuoqiu Immortal Lord said indifferently. His voice was like a warm spring breeze that blew away the chill in everyone's hearts. Yes. All the Tai perfected immortals sat down in unison. Then, Sword Immortal Wuji, who was standing at the entrance of the hall, sang again. The East Sea Immortal Master has arrived. A skinny figure walked into the hall. Unlike Zhuoqiu Immortal Lord, this figure walked up the white jade staircase step by step with a smile on his face. The immortals sitting below were excited to finally be able to witness the Immortal Lord's glory up close. The East Sea Immortal King looked like a small old man, but his hair was azure blue, which gave Ningqi a sense of non-mainstream. He exuded a faint aura of an immortal beast, which made Ningqi's heart skip a beat. This was an immortal beast in human form. After the East Sea Immortal Master took his seat, the Tai perfected immortals stood up and bowed to him. Zhuoqiu, long time no see. Eastern Sea Immortal Master said with a smile. Zhuoqiu nodded lightly, as if unwilling to say more. It's the same as before. What's wrong with saying a few words? We have been friends for so many years. Why don't you come to Donghai? If it weren't for Master Shingong's wedding today, How many years would we have to wait to meet again? Eastern Sea Immortal Emperor said with slight dissatisfaction. When the crowd heard this, they suddenly felt that the East Sea Immortal Lord seemed very approachable, no different from the seniors they usually interacted with. In contrast, Zhuoqiu Immortal Lord seemed a little aloof. A trace of helplessness flashed across Zhuoqiu Immortal Lord's eyes. He glanced at Eastern Sea Immortal Lord and said, "It's fine if you say a few more words now, but don't speak too much later." The Eastern Sea Immortal Lord was slightly taken aback, then he smiled and said, I know, it seems like even the immortal monarchs are very cautious about the Tiandao clan. I heard that the person who came to marry immortal monarch Shengong's daughter is only a Xian immortal. How terrifying is the Tiandao clan's strength? That's right. Ning Qi's eyes flickered slightly. Next, 4 immortal monarchs arrived one after another. They had different personalities. Some chatted happily with Eastern Sea Immortal Lord, while others were silent and aloof like Zhuoqiu Immortal Lord. But without exception, their eyes were as deep as Zhuoqiu Immortal Lord's. It was very easy to subconsciously ignore their immortal monarchs just by looking at their eyes. The 6 immortal monarchs who came to Emperor Ancestor City to offer their congratulations had all arrived. After about 10 minutes, another figure appeared in the main hall. This time, Sword Immortal Wuji did not sing. Instead, he bowed deeply and looked more respectful than when he was facing Zhuoqiu Immortal Lord and the others. Even more so. At the same time, Zhuoqiu Immortal Lord and the others stood up and looked at the figure. The hall immediately fell silent. Shengong Immortal Lord? No. Because the figure's aura was very ordinary, completely incomparable to that of an immortal monarch. He was only a Xian immortal. But how could an ordinary Xian immortal be able to make an immortal monarch stand up to welcome him? All of a sudden, everyone seemed to have guessed the identity of the figure. This handsome young man could be the one from the Tiandao family who was going to marry Shengong Immortal Lord's daughter. Everyone's eyes fell on the figure, including Ning Qi. An imperceptible killing intent flashed across Ning Qi's eyes. Lang Yi seemed to have sensed something and frowned at Ning Qi. When he saw Ning Qi's curious expression, which was similar to an ordinary person, a trace of suspicion flashed across his eyes. Even if this handsome young man turned into ashes, Ning Qi would still recognize him. I didn't expect him to live in this era. His cultivation in the future should not be weaker than Lang Yu Immortal Emperor, right? What a pity, what a pity! If the other party was a Grand Luo, Ning Qi would have killed him without hesitation. As for what would happen next, Ning Qi did not plan to think about it. I am Jiang Yu. Greetings, everyone. The handsome young man smiled. Although his voice was soft, the millions of immortals present could hear him clearly. Jiang Yu, a disciple of the Jiang family of the Tiandao family. Young Master Jiang, please take a seat. Zhuoqiu Immortal Lord smiled. Then I won't stand on ceremony. Jiang Yu had a faint smile on his face as he walked step by step to the 33rd level. Although the smile on his face was humble, Ning Qi could see that there was a hint of arrogance in his expression. It was as though these immortal lords in front of him were nothing in his eyes. Only when he passed the 31st level did he seem to notice something. After casting a glance at Ning Qi, he did not even spare a glance at those primordial unity genuine immortals. Then, he walked to the 33rd level. I wonder if I can kill him if I activate the immortal execution bow with all my might. Ning Qi looked at Jiang Yu with a curious look and thought to himself, that's the disciple of the Tiandao family? Emperor Bai looked at Jiang Yu with curiosity in his eyes. At the same time, he made a comparison between Ning Qi and Jiang Yu in his heart. In the end, he came to a conclusion. He felt that his guess was wrong. Ning Qi was very likely not a genius from the Tiandao clan. He's extraordinary indeed. He can remain so calm in the face of so many immortal lords. If I were him, my legs would probably be trembling. Emosye thought to himself. Chapter 2581. When Jiang Yu arrived, Dong Jingyan and the beautiful middle-aged woman beside him exchanged a glance. Is it done? Wait a little longer. All right. Dong Jingyan's motive was very simple. He wanted to confirm Ning Qi's identity, and the best time to do so was today. If Ning Qi wasn't from the Tiandao clan, then he would arrange a way to avenge Dong Kuan, and it was very likely that he wouldn't have to do it himself. Ning Qi sat leisurely on the 31st floor today. Even though the jade token was given to him by the immortal monarch's mansion, if he did not have the corresponding identity, it would be equivalent to fishing in troubled waters, and it would be punishable by death. The reason was simple. If the immortal monarch's mansion made a mistake and distributed the jade tokens wrongly, they had to take the initiative to suggest it. If they did not, then it would not be the immortal monarch's mansion's fault. Young Master Jiang, I heard that you plan to bring some young prodigies back home. Is that true? Zhuoqiu was the first to speak after Jiang Yu took his seat. The Eastern Sea Immortal Lord and the others exchanged a glance and looked at Jiang Yu with a smile on their faces. Apart from this group of Immortal Lords, most of the primordial unity true Immortals on the 32nd floor were shocked. Clearly, they did not know about this beforehand. When the Immortals below heard Zhuoqiu Immortal Lord's words, they were stunned for a moment before excitement appeared on their faces. The Tiandao clan plans to take in the young prodigies of our ancestral star? Unbelievable. Looks like it was the right decision to come here today. If I can get this opportunity, wouldn't I have the qualifications to become an immortal lord in the future? What a pity. I don't think we human immortals have this opportunity, right? Will the Tiandao clan take a liking to us? Human immortals, earth immortals, heavenly immortals, golden immortals, and perfected golden immortals were all extremely excited. Only the profound immortals were slightly shocked before they calmed down. They knew that if the Tiandao clan really began to take in young prodigies, they would most likely be those below the perfected heavenly immortal realm. Because these prodigies had yet to attain Dao fruit, they had endless possibilities. Profound immortals like them already had a fixed cultivation path, so there was not much use in taking them in. Do you guys think that the so-called Tiandao clan is the center of this illusion, and that the treasures of the divine tomb are kept there? The turtle-riding old man's eyes suddenly lit up as he transmitted his voice to the others. The others glanced at him with a pensive look, but they didn't reply. However, the turtle-riding old man didn't mind. He sank into deep thought, thinking that if his guess was correct, how should he obtain the qualifications to head to the heavenly Dao clan and obtain his own good fortune? I didn't expect this news to have already spread. Jiang Yu glanced at the 6 immortal monarchs with a faint smile. He paused for a moment. My patriarch did instruct me to bring back 10 young talents from the ancestral star, and I've already given 5 to Shingong, immortal monarch. Now I only have 5 left, but there are 6 of you here. It won't be easy to distribute them. As soon as these words were spoken, the atmosphere in the hall turned tense. The immortals below were disappointed. Jiang Yu's words had already made his stance clear. The remaining 5 spots would fall into the hands of the 6 immortal monarchs. It had nothing to do with them. Moreover, the 6 great immortal monarchs were fighting for 5 spots. Among them, one of the immortal monarchs would definitely not be able to get a spot. Everyone, there are only 5 spots left. I want one, so you can split the remaining 4. Zhuoqiu immortal monarch said flatly. He had the best relationship with Shingong immortal monarch and was the first to arrive. None of the Eastern Sea immortal monarchs seemed to have any objections when he asked for 1 spot. Now, the most important thing was, how were they going to split the remaining 4 spots? I want a spot too. Don't fight with an old man like me. Eastern Sea Immortal Monarch said with a smile. Eastern Sea Immortal Monarch, don't take advantage of your seniority. I don't care if Zhuoqiu Immortal Monarch wants a spot, but what gives you the right? The 5 of us should come up with a plan to decide who gets the remaining 4 spot. It's not something you can take just because you want it. The one who spoke was White Crane, Immortal Monarch. There was a hint of demonic aura emanating from its body. It seemed that it was not human. If it was a low-level demonic immortal, normal immortals would treat it differently. However, White Crane Immortal Monarch was already an immortal monarch, a powerhouse throughout the ages. No one would dare to make a fuss about its identity as a demonic cultivator. The relationship between immortal beasts and the demonic race was not good to begin with. Since White Crane Immortal Monarch was the first to refute Eastern Sea Immortal Monarch, the others seemed to have guessed it. They wore faint smiles on their faces and waited for White Crane Immortal Monarch and Eastern Sea Immortal Monarch to come to an agreement. Eastern Sea Immortal Monarch's eyes revealed a hint of anger. He looked coldly at White Crane Immortal Monarch and asked, "How do you suggest we split it? Why don't we just have a fight? If you lose, you get lost. The remaining spots will belong to the 4 of us." White Crane Immortal Monarch smiled. "How arrogant! Today, Shingong Immortal Monarch's daughter is marrying off. You want me to have a fight? Are you deliberately looking for trouble? What do you think, young Master Jiang Yu?" Eastern Sea Immortal Monarch looked at Jiang Yu. Jiang Yu, who was watching the show, smiled and said, "Why don't we wait until today's matter is over before deciding? Then I'll give young Master Jiang Yu some face." White Crane Immortal Monarch snorted. Ningqi, who was sitting below, had been paying attention to Jiang Yu. He noticed that when Eastern Sea Immortal Monarch and White Crane Immortal Monarch were arguing over the spots, Jiang Yu's eyes flashed with a trace of mockery. He's doing it on purpose. He just wants to see a joke. It seems like this old dog was already this arrogant and condescending when he was young. Ningqi sneered in his heart. At this moment, a snowflake suddenly fell on the back of Ningqi's hand, giving him a cold feeling. It's snowing in the palace? When Ningqi raised his head, he could see snowflakes floating above the entire palace. Not long after, the ground was covered with a thin layer of snow. Rumor has it that Shingong Immortal Monarch's daughter, Shingong Shuerer, has the Great Tao body. She was born with the Great Tao energy in her body. The Great Tao of Snow lives up to its name. Even I feel a little cold. Langya reached out to catch a snowflake and said softly, "Great Tao body?" This was the first time Ningqi heard of this term. Was there really someone who was born with the Great Tao energy? If there really was such a thing, then wouldn't their starting line be much higher than that of ordinary immortals? Wouldn't it have already arrived at an unreachable level? After all, among the immortals, only those who had reached the profound immortal level could be considered to have the Great Tao energy. "Little brother Ning, are you looking forward to it? You're about to meet Shingong Shuer." Rumor has it that even Wang Wei Immortal Emperor had praised her peerless beauty on this ancestral star. Langya seemed to be a little nervous. In order to ease his nervousness, he smiled at Ningqi. "Can beauty be used to make a living?" Chapter 2582. Logically speaking, as a disciple of the Jiang family, if Jiang Yu were to marry Shingong Shuerer, why would Shingong Immortal Lord fall to the central mainland? As he muttered to himself, Ningqi also thought of this. Could it be that Jiang Yu couldn't even protect his father-in-law? At this moment, 2 figures appeared at the entrance of the hall. When Ningqi saw the face of one of the figures, he was slightly stunned. It was a woman. Just like what Langya had said, she had a stunning appearance. Among all the women that Ningqi had seen, not many could be compared to her. As soon as she appeared, the air in the hall became colder. Traces of Great Tao aura circled around her and eventually condensed into sparkling snowflakes. The woman's cultivation seemed to be only at the profound immortal realm, but her aura was not weaker than Zhuoqiu Immortal Lord and the rest. It was as if her body was suppressing an extremely majestic Great Tao energy. The surrounding immortals, regardless of gender, stared at Shingong Shuerer in a daze. As for Shengong, immortal lord who was beside her, he was ignored. The arrogance on Jiang Yu's face had disappeared. His eyes were burning as he stared at Shengong Shui-er's beautiful face. If someone were to look closely, they would notice that Jiang Yu's shoulders were trembling slightly. It was as if he was an antique merchant who had seen a peerless treasure. Only Ning Qi's expression was slightly different from the rest. He was not attracted by Shengong Shui-er's beauty. Instead, he was shocked by her similarity to Wang Shui. So similar, Ning Qi murmured to himself. Shengong Shui-er's appearance was too similar to Wang Shui's. If it wasn't for the fact that Shengong Shui-er's aura, demeanor and temperament were completely different from Wang Shui's, Ning Qi would have thought that he had seen Wang Shui again. When Shui-er's soul was taken away by Jiang Yu, that underworld cultivator said that there was a special brand on her body, like some reincarnated almighty. When Shui died, her cultivation was not even at the human immortal realm. How could Jiang Yu notice her? Unless Shui is the reincarnation of Shengong Shui. Hiss, Ning Qi sucked in a breath of cold air. He was frightened by his own speculation. If his guess was correct, then it was too much of a coincidence for him to appear here and coincidentally see Shengong Shui. However, a guess was just a guess. Perhaps there was no relationship between Shengong Shui and Wang Shui. Although Shengong Shui-er's eyes were looking straight ahead, they did not seem to have any focus. Her expression was cold as she walked towards the 33rd floor. Shengong, immortal lord, walked beside her. His appearance was the same as when Ning Qi had seen him in the realm of death. However, he was much more spirited. After all, this was Shengong. Back then, Shengong's celestial monarch was merely a remnant soul. Young Master Jiang. As soon as Shengong, immortal monarch, saw Jiang Yu, a fawning look appeared on his face. Jiang Yu immediately retracted his gaze from Shengong Shui and nodded at Shengong, immortal master, with a smile. Then, he glanced at Shengong Shui from the corner of his eyes. He realized that from the moment she entered the hall to the 33rd floor, she had never looked at him. It was as if he did not exist. Shengong, that old man, he was never as good as I was, but he gave birth to such a good daughter. Eastern Sea Immortal Master looked at Shengong Immortal Master with a smile and thought to himself. Zhuoqiu Immortal Master and the others also greeted Shengong Immortal Master. Their gazes toward Shengong Shui were a little strange. Even though they were Shengong Shui's uncles and their cultivations were 2 cultivation levels higher than Shengong Shui's, they were unwilling to admit that Shengong Shui's cultivation level was higher than Shengong Shui's. They felt pressured in front of Shengong Shui. They weren't unfamiliar with this kind of pressure. Every time they stood in front of Wang Yue, Immortal Emperor, they would feel the same pressure. Body of the Great Tao, born to be an immortal emperor. No wonder even the Tiandao family sent Jiang Yu to form a marriage alliance with her. White Crane Immortal Lord sighed. If they were to ask who had the best future in the hall, they would not say Jiang Yu, but Shengong Shui. Although Jiang Yu was born in the Tiandao family, he was just an ordinary sovereign. Perhaps he had the strength to fight someone of a lower cultivation level. With some trump cards, even a Tai genuine immortal might not be able to defeat him. However, compared to Shengong Shui, there was still a huge gap. Miss Shui, I'm Jiang Yu. Nice to meet you. Jiang Yu cupped his hands at Shengong Shui and smiled. Nice to meet you? Everyone was a little surprised. They thought that they were already a couple and that they were just here to go through the motions. They didn't expect that the two of them had never met before. Why do I feel like I'm selling my daughter? Mo-Xie sent a voice transmission to Emperor Bai Ng Fei. Shengong Shui was really too beautiful. Mo-Xie felt a little uncomfortable at the thought of her marrying Jiang Yu. Don't talk nonsense. Emperor Bai Ng Fei glared at Mo-Xie at the same time. Only then did Shengong Shui seem to see Jiang Yu. She glanced at his face and looked away, not saying a word. Jiang Yu's smile became a little stiff. As the sovereign of the Tiandao family, when had he ever been treated like this? No matter where he went, those female cultivators would throw themselves at him. It was just that he didn't like them. But that was good too. He felt that it was more challenging. Mr. Jiang, my daughter rarely meets people. Perhaps there are too many people today and she's a little shy. Please don't mind her. Let's sit. Shingong Immortal Lord frowned and looked at Shingong Shui. He seemed to be a little unhappy with her cold attitude. He immediately put on a fawning smile and invited Jiang Yu to sit down. His demeanor did not look like that of an immortal lord at all. He looked more like an unscrupulous businessman. However, Zhuqiu and the rest seemed to know Shingong Immortal Lord very well and their expressions did not change. Thank you, Immortal Lord. Jiang Yu smiled and nodded. He did not seem to be angry at all and sat down gracefully. As Shingong Immortal Lord, Shingong Shui and the rest took their seats, the grand ceremony officially began. All kinds of delicacies were served and the atmosphere became a little lively. As long as one ignored the snowflakes floating in the air. Jiang Yu had been trying to find a topic to talk to Shingong Shui. However, Shingong Shui avoided him coldly, as if she did not want to talk to Jiang Yu. Gradually, Jiang Yu, who thought that he was very shrewd, showed a little displeasure on his face. Shingong Immortal Lord, which family's disciple is that? Zhuqiu Immortal Lord changed the topic without batting an eyelid. He pointed at Ning Qi who was sitting with the other Xian immortals like a crane among chickens. Dong Jingyan and the middle-aged beauty were delighted. They had their own plans but did not expect Zhuqiu Immortal Lord to help them unintentionally. Chapter 2583. Shingong Immortal Lord frowned slightly. He had no impression of Ning Qi at all. If Zhuqiu Immortal Lord had not reminded him, he would not have paid much attention to who was sitting on the 31st level. Full Circle Heavenly Immortal? Shingong Immortal Monarch examined Ning Qi for a while, then smiled at the others and said, "Who accepted him as his last disciple? Why didn't you inform us?" "Not me." The Eastern Sea Immortal Master shook his head. "Not me either." White Crane Deity Monarch shook his head. The other immortal monarchs glanced at each other before shaking their heads in unison in the end. Shingong Immortal Monarch's expression instantly turned grim. If he isn't the disciple of an immortal monarch, then why would the manager of his estate, Sword Immortal Wuji, arrange for him to sit on the 31st level? This was because ordinary sovereigns, even disciples of Tai genuine celestials, were not qualified to sit together with mysterious celestials at the heaven's celestial stage. The expressions of the primordial unity perfected immortals sitting on the 32nd floor changed. The mystic immortals sitting at the same table as Ning Qi looked even more unsightly. "Little brother Ning, you couldn't have snuck up here, right?" Langya looked at Ning Qi speechlessly. Ning Qi smiled but didn't say anything. "Wuji." Shingong Immortal Lord snorted coldly. The other immortals, who hadn't noticed them, all looked over when they heard Shingong Immortal Lord's voice. Their conversations stopped abruptly. Sword Immortal Wuji immediately scurried up to the 33rd floor and bowed respectfully. "Immortal Lord, what instructions do you have for me? The jade medallions for the 31st level all go through your hands. Who is this person?" Shingong Immortal Monarch looked at Ning Qi indifferently and said. His voice wasn't loud, but it wasn't soft either. At the very least, all the immortals in the hall heard him loud and clear. Instantly, their gazes fell on Ning Qi, and a trace of uncertainty appeared on their faces. "Looks like there really was a mistake." Bai Xingshue's lips curled up slightly. Li Si's eyes also revealed a hint of schadenfreude. As for the turtle-riding old man, he could not help but sneer. What happened? Hao Shui, Li Zhangtong, Yan Feiwu, Yang Xiaolong, and others who knew Ning Qi were shocked. Something's wrong. Emperor Bai's expression was solemn. Mo Xie and Ji Fei also reacted at the same time. Damn, Brother Ning might have fallen into a trap. Mo Xie's face revealed a trace of self-blame. The Heaven Immortals who shared the table with them first gave Ning Qi a strange look, then looked at the three with a hint of schadenfreude. No wonder you didn't tell me who he was. It turns out that he sneaked in. The celestial immortal who was already convinced of his superiority began to mock him again. Zhuochu, don't be so shameless. Shut up. Mo Xie coldly glanced at the celestial immortal. Zhuochu's eyes flashed with anger when he heard this. He glanced in the direction of the 33rd level and snorted coldly. Today is the day of Shengong, Immortal Lord's daughter's wedding. It's a joyous day, so I won't argue with you. Once we get out, follow me to the Immortals' battle stage. I'll go. If I don't, I'll be a tortoise, Mo Xie said without turning his head. His eyes were fixed on Ning Qi the whole time, filled with worry. If Ning Qi had really been tricked by the Dong clan this time, he would be the one to blame. If it weren't for him, Ning Qi wouldn't have started a feud with the Dong clan. When Sword Immortal Wuji heard Shengong Immortal Lord's question, he immediately looked at Dong Yi, who was sitting on the 32nd level, with a hint of reproach in his eyes. Dong Yi stood up at the right time, an apologetic look on his face as he bowed to Shengong Immortal Lord. Immortal Lord, I was the one who arranged young Master Ning's seat on my own initiative. Young Master Ning? The Dong clan's patriarch had called this kid young Master Ning? Could this kid really have some incredible background that made him arrange for him to sit on the 31st level without even knowing about Shengong Immortal Lord? Everyone's eyes turned a little strange. Zhuochu, who had just agreed to go to the Immortals' battle stage with Mo Xie, was shocked when he saw this turn of events, his body trembling uncontrollably. Brother Mo, don't make a sound. If you dare to run, I'll make your name known across the ancestral star. This, Zhuochu's eyes were filled with regret, wishing that he could slap himself 10,000 times. It was all his fault for speaking too fast. Shengong Immortal Lord looked at Dong Yi with a slight frown. Dong Yi was an old servant who had been following him since young, and he knew Dong Yi very well. If there was no absolute reason, Dong Yi would not have arranged for a heavenly immortal to sit on the 31st level on his own initiative. I'll give you a chance to explain, Shengong Immortal Lord said flatly. Dong Yi nodded and glanced at Ning Qi, then at Jiang Yu, saying, This old servant has received news that this young Master Ning is likely a disciple of the Tiandao clan, which is why I arranged for him to sit on the 31st level on my own initiative. Tiandao clan? There was a slight uproar at the scene. Even the ways Wuqiu Immortal Lord and the others looked at Ning Qi changed. Jiang Yu, who had been ignoring the matter, could not help but look up at Ning Qi. With a single glance, he noticed some clues and his eyes changed slightly. No wonder this kid felt so familiar just now. He has the mark of an outer disciple on him? Jiang Yu muttered inwardly. He would not have noticed it if he had not paid attention this time. The family sent me to the homeworld, so why did they send someone else here? Jiang Yu was a little puzzled, but on second thought, those old fellows were always so secretive, and he had yet to come into contact with the core of the Jiang family. It was only normal that the Jiang family did not inform him of certain matters. But this old servant is not very sure. Since this matter is of great importance and Immortal Lord is not free these few days, this old servant has arranged for young Master Ning to sit here. If young Master Ning is really from the Tiandao clan, it would not be considered a slight. Dong Yi's tone changed. Not sure? Everyone's expression became even weirder when they saw the turn of events. Some time ago, young Master Ning got into an argument with a good-for-nothing disciple of mine. The two of them went to the Immortals' duel stage, and in the end, young Master Ning killed that disciple with a single strike of his sword. Even the grand heavenly realm revered elder by his side died under young Master Ning's sword. This old servant believes that only the Tiandao clan can nurture such a prodigy. Dong Yi chuckled. A heavenly immortal slaying a grand luo? Everyone's gaze towards Ning Qi changed once more, and Zhuochu, who had mocked Ning Qi twice, was trembling uncontrollably. However, Li Si and the others who came from the divine mausoleum were not surprised at all, for they had already witnessed Ning Qi's unusual sword technique. Shengong Shui'er, who had appeared rather cold all along, suddenly turned and glanced at Ning Qi. Clearly, the matter of a heavenly immortal slaying a grand luo had caught her attention. Chapter 2584. Young Master Jiang Yu, what do you think? Shengong Immortal Lord glanced at Ning Qi with a doubtful expression and asked Jiang Yu. Jiang Yu was more shocked than anyone else when he heard that Ning Qi could slay a grand luo with a single strike of his sword, but Ning Qi's identity was not faked. That's right. Only the Tiandao clan could nurture such a prodigy. Those words were enough to confirm Ning Qi's identity. Which ancestor nurtured this kid? To be able to slay a grand luo with a single strike. I didn't even have such combat strength when I was a heavenly immortal. Jiang Yu looked at Ning Qi with a hint of jealousy. At the same time, Dong Jingyan and the middle-aged beauty's expressions dimmed as a hint of fear began to rise in their hearts. Dong Yi, on the other hand, was unfazed as he muttered to himself in delight. This old servant was right. I almost neglected young Master Ning. Was he really a disciple of the Tiandao clan? Shengong Immortal Lord and the others looked at each other. The Tiandao clan, which was rarely seen, had produced two prodigies in a row today? Jiang Yu and the others already knew who this young Master Ning was. If old Dog Dong is telling the truth that a heavenly immortal could slay a grand luo, then this prodigy would probably be much stronger than Jiang Yu when he's a profound immortal. The Eastern Sea Immortal Lord's expression changed. He was not the only one who had thought of that. The other immortal lords seemed to have thought of it as well, which was why their expressions were rather odd. Mo Xie and the others looked at each other and saw a hint of surprise in each other's eyes. Now that Ning Qi's identity was confirmed, the Dong clan would not dare to touch him even if they were given 10 times the courage. Zhuochu, who had an appointment with Mo Xie to go to the Immortals' battle stage, was already pale and wanted to beg for mercy. But Mo Xie ignored him. This kid must have obtained something in the illusion, which is why the illusion recognized his identity. Perhaps he knew about the secret of the illusion before us when he didn't crack the formation I with us. Li Si's voice reached every grand luo that came from the divine mausoleum. By Xingxue, the turtle-riding old man, Tai Yuan, and the other grand luo's expressions changed slightly as they looked at Ning Qi with a hint of passion. Still, they were still wary of Ning Qi. After all, Ning Qi had used 2 methods to slay a grand luo, which was enough to prove that he was not to be trifled with. Yes. After today's matter is over, we'll join forces and talk to him. If he's not willing to talk, we'll send the news to these immortal monarchs. Even though they're just illusions, they're strong enough to kill Ning Beixian. Li Si transmitted his voice. The turtle-riding old man from the southern sea nodded in agreement. Young Master Li Si is right. Tai Yuan laughed. Then let's do this. Young Master Ning, would you like to have a seat of honor? Since Ning Qi's identity had been confirmed, Shengong Immortal Lord did not dare to let a member of the Tiandao clan sit below him. He quickly invited Ning Qi to sit on the 33rd floor. Those Xian immortals who were originally sitting at the same table as Ning Qi were feeling slightly strange at this moment. They were secretly delighted because they were able to sit at the same table as the disciples of the Tiandao clan today, and it just so happened that they could use this opportunity to get closer to them. If they were able to hug onto the thigh of the Tiandao clan, then the benefits would definitely be enormous. There's no need. I'm fine sitting here. Ning Qi smiled. Shengong Immortal Lord did not expect Ning Qi to refuse. As an Immortal Lord, he was put on the spot and could not help but look at Jiang Yu. Why did the family send you here? Jiang Yu looked plainly at Ning Qi and asked. You don't need to know. Ning Qi smiled. Ugh, everyone showed a hint of surprise on their faces. Although they were both from the Tiandao clan, one was a Xian immortal while the other was a heavenly immortal. How could this heavenly immortal be so impolite? Jiang Yu was slightly taken aback as well. A hint of anger surged in his heart, but just as he was about to lash out, he saw the faint smile on Ning Qi's face and a hint of anticipation. His heart skipped a beat. Was Ning Qi purposely trying to provoke him? What was his purpose in coming to the ancestral star? Which patriarch was standing behind this kid? Since the family has given the order, I won't ask any more. Jiang Yu's expression changed a few times before he suddenly smiled. You are from the Tiandao clan as well? A cold voice rang, but that voice made Ning Qi's heart shudder as he looked towards Shingong Shui. Jiang Yu's expression turned extremely ugly. He had tried to chat with Shingong Shui, but the latter always looked like she could not be bothered with him. She only nodded or hummed softly. But now, Shingong Shui was taking the initiative to talk to Ning Qi? Shingong Immortal Lord also looked at his daughter in surprise, finding it strange. This voice, it's exactly the same? It would make sense if the appearance was 90% similar, but for the voice to be exactly the same, it could not be a coincidence, could it? If he closed his eyes, Ning Qi would even think that the one who spoke was Wang Shui. However, Ning Qi concealed that hint of surprise very well. He merely glanced at Shingong Shui before smiling, and did not answer. Shingong Shui thought that he had tacitly agreed, and suddenly said to Shingong Immortal Lord, since he is also a disciple of the Tiandao clan, I will marry him since you want to use me to form a marriage alliance with the Tiandao clan. Boom. Those words were like dropping an atomic bomb into the deep sea. From the human immortals below to Zhuqiu Immortal Lord and the others, all of them were dumbfounded as they looked at Shingong Shui in disbelief. Ning Qi was stunned as well. The change was too sudden for him to keep up. No way. Mo Xie and the other two looked at Ning Qi blankly, and then at Shingong Shui, still doubting if they had heard wrongly. Could it be that the treasure in this illusory realm is with this woman? However, her cultivation base seems to be very terrifying. We can't defeat her even if we join forces. Li Si and the others revealed a hint of doubt in their eyes. Since they were certain that this was an illusion, they would think that the abnormal phenomenon in the illusion was some kind of sign. Shingong Shui, what do you mean by this? Jiang Yu's voice became unusually cold, and the killing intent in his eyes could no longer be suppressed. He was not afraid at all even though there were 7 celestial dukes present. This woman dared to say such words in front of so many people, completely disregarding his dignity. If it was not for the fact that he needed the Tao body, he would not have been able to hold it in. At this moment, Shingong Shui's words were like a fuse that was about to detonate a bomb. Nonsense. Shingong Immortal Lord immediately rebuked. He quickly smiled at Jiang Yu and said, Young Master Jiang, please don't be angry. My daughter often speaks nonsense, please forgive her. I'm not speaking nonsense. I don't like the smell of his body. I like the smell of his body. Shingong Shui shook her head and glanced sideways at Jiang Yu as though she was looking at something in a pile of rubbish. Then, she pointed at Ning Qi. So, you have the same goal as me. You want to snatch the Tao body? I'll give you a chance. Get back to the clan immediately. Jiang Yu said through voice transmission as he looked at Ning Qi coldly. Chapter 2585. Oh no, Brother Ning is here to snatch the bride. Mo Xie sucked in a breath of cold air. Bai Di and Ji Fei looked at Ning Qi in shock, not knowing what to say. Everyone seemed to be still immersed in Ning Qi's words and couldn't recover for a long time. The atmosphere in the hall became incomparably cold. Everyone was silent, including Shingong Immortal Monarch and the others. After Ning Qi blurted out those words, they shut their mouths. In their eyes, Ningqi and Jiang Yu were both disciples of the Tiandao clan. They were existences that they could not afford to offend. No matter which side they stood on, they would offend the other party. Since that was the case, they might as well not say anything and let them settle this matter on their own. Shengong, Immortal Lord, vaguely glared at Shengong Shui. He was already very angry. Today's matter was supposed to be very simple. He just had to accept Jiang Yu's betrothal gifts, and Shengong Shui would follow Jiang Yu back to the Tiandao family. That would be the end of the matter. Now that there were unexpected complications, Shengong, Immortal Lord, felt a little uneasy. Good daughter, listen to your father. Don't mess around and try to persuade these two young masters. Shengong, Immortal Lord, transmitted his voice. Father, isn't your aim to form a marriage alliance with the Tiandao clan? Since young Master Ning is also from the Tiandao clan, what's the difference between me marrying him and Jiang Yu? Jiang Yu is too arrogant and I don't like him. Shengong Shui shook her head. That's true, but Shengong, Immortal Lord, felt a little helpless. Although he did not know much about Jiang Yu, he at least knew that his parents were both immortal monarchs. Among the immortal monarchs, their combat strength was extremely terrifying. Any one of them could easily suppress him. However, Shengong, Immortal Monarch, did not know anything about Ningqi. He was a heavenly immortal. Even if he came from the Tiandao family, it was hard to guarantee that the power behind him was weaker than Jiang Yu. Therefore, in his heart, the person he preferred was naturally Jiang Yu and not Ningqi. However, due to their identities, it was not appropriate for him to say anything, and he could only let the two of them settle it on their own. You want me to scram? A look of astonishment flashed in Jiang Yu's eyes. He then looked at Ningqi in disbelief. Where did he get his confidence from? Even if he did not know which patriarch stood behind Ningqi, those patriarchs were not even in the homeworld right now. He was a mystic immortal, and the other party was but a heaven. An immortal dared to be so arrogant and rude? Yes. Ningqi smiled and nodded. Today, I was ordered to come here to marry Shengong Shui. This is an order from the clan. You dared to disobey the clan's order and cause trouble here. Do you know what sort of punishment you will face when you return? Jiang Yu took a deep breath. Unless absolutely necessary, he would not make a move against Ningqi. This was also because he was deeply afraid of the few patriarchs in his clan. If a heaven immortal dared to be so arrogant in front of him, he would have died no less than 10,000 times. After Jiang Yu finished speaking, he deliberately glanced at Shengong Shui and emphasized the word, following orders. There was already a hint of threat in his tone. But I don't like you. Ningqi smiled. This is an order from the clan elders. Jiang Yu raised his voice. But I don't like you. Ningqi smiled. Seeing that Jiang Yu was furious but didn't dare to do anything to him, Ningqi felt extremely happy. Although he knew that Jiang Yu hadn't done anything against him in the future, Ningqi also felt the thrill of revenge. Consider it as collecting some interest first. Ningqi knew his own limits and knew his limit. Ningqi knew that the Jiang Yu of the future was not someone he could deal with in a short time. That's right. I don't like you. You can leave now. Shengong Shui spoke in a timely manner as if she was performing a crosstalk, causing Jiang Yu, who was about to speak, to choke. Shengong Immortal Lord, are you two teaming up to humiliate me, Jiang Yu? Jiang Yu no longer bothered with Ningqi and Shengong Shui, but looked at Shengong Immortal Lord with undisguised menace in his eyes. Do my parents have to come to the homeworld in person to marry your daughter? The expressions of Zhuoqiu Immortal Lord and the others changed slightly at those words. Jiang Yu's parents were one of the most outstanding geniuses in the Great War of Immortals and Demons. It had been many years since the war, and the demons and ancient immortals had long been suppressed with only a few of them left. But they had seen with their own eyes the power of Jiang Yu's parents when they joined forces. Apart from the immortal lords from the Tiandao clan, no other immortal lords in the immortal realm, including those present today, would be a match for them even if they joined forces. Young Master Jiang Yu, please don't misunderstand. Today's matter has absolutely nothing to do with me, Shengong Immortal Lord hurriedly explained, while glaring viciously at Dong Yi. If not for Dong Yi, would such a thing have happened? Although Dong Yi lowered his head expressionlessly, there was a tinge of regret in his eyes. He never thought that his little action would cause the situation to become so embarrassing. Based on his understanding of Shengong Immortal Lord, he would definitely not have a good ending today. Oh? What do you mean? Jiang Yu asked flatly. That. I'm afraid this is your family matter, young master. Shengong Immortal Lord looked troubled. Why don't the two of you have a competition, and whoever wins will marry my niece, Shuer? Zhuoqiu Immortal Lord suddenly suggested. That's a good suggestion. Let's have a competition then. The corner of Jiang Yu's lips curled up slightly, and he exchanged a smile with Zhuoqiu Immortal Lord. He was not sure which patriarch was behind Ning Qi. Therefore, with Zhuoqiu Immortal Lord's suggestion, he could teach Ning Qi a lesson openly. At that time, even if the patriarch behind Ning Qi reprimanded him, he could do nothing about it. Competition? Everyone's expression was rather odd. One was a profound immortal, and the other was a heavenly immortal. Was there even a need to fight? Although Dong Yi said that Ning Qi had the strength to kill a Grand Luo and profound immortal were not on the same level at all, just like the difference between a golden immortal and a Grand Luo. That's a little unfair, isn't it? Young Master Ning is merely a heavenly immortal perfected, while young Master Jiang Yu is already a profound immortal early-stage existence. Why don't I have a competition with young Master Jiang Yu? If I win, I'll marry young Master Ning. If I lose, I'll marry young Master Jiang Yu. Shengong Shuer smiled. As soon as she finished, the aura of the great Tao on her body became even more majestic. The immortal lords present exchanged glances, already understanding how much Shengong Shuer hated Jiang Yu. Chapter 2586. The crowd fell silent. Jiang Yu glanced at Shengong Shuer. The rage in his eyes was enough to evaporate an ocean. He did have many tricks up his sleeve. He even dared to fight the weaker primordial unity perfected immortals present. However, Shengong Shuer was the only one he had no confidence in. Shengong Shuer's great Dao physique was extremely monstrous. Even in the Tiandao clan there were not many people like her. Jiang Yu had once seen such a genius in action in the clan. Their methods were still fresh in his memory. I can suppress my cultivation and fight him with the means of a perfected heaven immortal. Jiang Yu said coldly. Suppress his cultivation? Shengong Immortal Monarch and the others exchanged glances. Shengong Immortal Monarch smiled sheepishly and said, We have no right to interfere with how Mr. Jiang Yu and Mr. Ning will fight. Please do as you wish. Suppress my cultivation? What do you think, Mr. Ning? Shengong Shuer smiled and looked at Ning Qi. Let's fight then. Ning Qi nodded calmly. When the immortals below saw this scene, their expressions immediately became somewhat expectant. Both Ning Qi and Jiang Yu were from the Tiandao family. They had never seen a competition between such existences. They also wanted to see how strong the Tiandao family, which was rumored to have turned the tide and saved the common people of the immortal world. Jiang Yu's aura dropped rapidly from a mystic immortal to a zenith heaven immortal, then to a perfected heaven immortal. I don't care which old ancestor is behind you. I won't go easy on you for ruining my plans today. For the sake of the clan, I won't kill you, but I'll cripple your cultivation. Jiang Yu's voice rang in Ning Qi's ears. Cripple my cultivation? Maybe you can do it in the future, but you're not qualified now. Ning Qi's lips curled up slightly. Whether I'm qualified or not, you'll know when you beg me for mercy. Jiang Yu's expression turned ferocious. In the next moment, his body suddenly emitted a dazzling white light. Rows of profound runes circled around Jiang Yu. In an instant, the runes condensed into a rune sword and shot towards Ning Qi. The immortal art seemed simple, but it was of an extremely high grade. It was already a 7th grade immortal art. Among the 7th grade immortal arts, its offensive power was extremely high. Dao Talisman? Shengong Immortal Master and the others were shocked when they saw the profound runes. They did not expect Jiang Yu, a mere early Xian immortal, to be able to convert his great Dao energy into Dao runes. There were legacies in immortal arts, but not in Dao talismans. In the immortal world, grand heavenly immortals could attain Dao fruit, while mystic immortals could nurture the power of great Dao. However, at the immortal lord level, what they pursued was no longer as simple as making the power of great Dao their own. Instead, they sought to convert the power of great Dao into Dao talismans. Dao talismans. There were countless uses for talismans. Usually, they were similar to the great Dao energy that the talisman itself possessed. However, their might was vastly different. That was because legend had it that talismans were the words of the great Dao. Only the heavenly Dao could truly understand the meaning behind them. It was both simple and difficult to convert the power of great Dao into a talisman. There were no shortcuts. Only by comprehending one's own power of great Dao to the extreme could one sublimate the power of great Dao and turn it into a talisman. It could be said that the talisman itself was a kind of legacy. Every existence that had comprehended a talisman was considered a grandmaster. They could establish their own sect and have their own essence. In the future, as long as their disciples could comprehend the talisman of their grandmaster, they would be able to derive all sorts of cultivation methods, even the art of crafting and alchemy. Hold on, there was another rumor. It was said that the first talisman in the world was bestowed by the heavenly Dao to the ancestral star. Since then, the ancestral star had immortals, all sorts of legends, and all sorts of beasts, monsters, and immortal beasts. For a period of time, many immortals had been searching for all sorts of clues to find the first talisman. This was the first Dao talisman, but even immortal emperors didn't know where it went. After a long time, only a few stubborn and persistent people continued to search for this legendary Dao talisman in the vast immortal world. Everyone else regarded it as a legend. This is the heavenly Dao clan? Even a mystic immortal could comprehend the power of the Dao to the extreme and derive a Dao talisman? This talisman of his is extremely murderous, and could be used for slaughter. The Eastern Sea Immortal Lord was a little shocked. It could be said that Jiang Yu had strategically crushed all the immortal lords present, including the 2 immortal lords who were absent. None of the 9 great immortal lords of the ancestral star could comprehend a Dao talisman that belonged to them. There was a widely acknowledged rule in the immortal world that only those who had comprehended a Dao talisman were qualified to become an immortal emperor. And only an immortal emperor could possess a Dao talisman that belonged to them and a legacy that belonged to them. Unbelievable! This kid has the protection of the heavenly Dao clan, and yet he has already comprehended a Dao talisman in the mystic immortal realm. Given a little more time, wouldn't he become another immortal emperor? Zhuoqiu Immortal Lord was shocked. Is this the power of the heavenly Dao clan? I wonder how many more of them there are. Could he be the same? White Crane Immortal Lord looked at Ning Qi with a complicated gaze, remembering what Dong Yi had said. Ning Qi could slay a perfected golden immortal with a cultivation base of a perfected heavenly immortal. That could very well be the result of a Dao talisman. Hee. Jiang Yu sneered inwardly as he looked at Ning Qi. Although he had agreed to fight Ning Qi with a cultivation base of a perfected heavenly immortal, a Dao talisman had nothing to do with cultivation base. It was just like the immortal Qi in someone else's body, which had already fused into his bloodline and essence. No matter what immortal art he cast, he could use a Dao talisman to multiply the power of an immortal art, and the power he could unleash was at least 4 to 5 times that of an opponent of the same level. Coupled with the power of a 7th-tier immortal art itself, this strike could at least kill a late-stage golden immortal, let alone a perfected heavenly immortal. Shingong Shuer frowned slightly, seemingly surprised. Apart from the immortal lords and Shingong Shuer, the other primordial unity true immortals, mystic immortals, and perfected golden immortals knew little about Tao talismans, and some could not even tell the difference between ordinary talismans and Tao talismans. Therefore, they could not tell how powerful Jiang Yu's strike was. Logically speaking, everyone thought that Ning Qi would dodge the attack temporarily. However, instead of retreating, Ning Qi moved forward and punched the immortal sword condensed by the Tao talisman. Chapter 2587. The Tao talisman sword paused for a moment before it crumbled instantly. This attack, which was strong enough to kill a late golden immortal, was like a child's play in front of Ning Qi, who had opened all 8 of the 9 inner hidden gates. However, this was also related to the fact that Jiang Yu had only used the cultivation base of a peak heavenly immortal. If he had used his full strength, the situation would be different. Is this what you're capable of? Why don't I help you loosen your bones? Ning Qi shook his neck and the joints in his body cracked. In the next moment, Ning Qi appeared in front of a shocked Jiang Yu. Jiang Yu looked at Ning Qi in shock. Ning Qi did not use any immortal art or any technique. Just a punch and he broke his attack? I've wanted to hit you for a long time. The corner of Ning Qi's mouth rose slightly. Wanted to hit me for a long time? Have I seen him before? Bang! Jiang Yu's chin was hit by Ning Qi's uppercut. His head flew up and his body was involuntarily lifted off the ground. But immediately after, his ankle was grabbed by Ning Qi and he was smashed to the ground. Bang! The green jade floor had sunk deep into the ground and there were dense spiderweb-like patterns all around. The situation had changed too quickly. Everyone was dumbfounded as they watched the scene unfold before them. They realized that Ning Qi had not used any immortal technique. He was merely relying on the punches and kicks that only mortals could use. He was beating Jiang Yu over and over again. Jiang Yu had just made his appearance. The impression that Jiang Yu had created when he first appeared had collapsed in an instant. I thought, Brother Ning would use swordsmanship, Mo Xie murmured to himself. Emperor Bai and Ji Fei looked at each other and couldn't help but recall the time when they first met Ning Qi. It seemed that Ning Qi had been so unexpected since then. Li Si and the rest didn't look too good. The person being beaten up by Ning Qi was a Xian immortal who was stronger than all of them. Even though he promised to only use the strength of a sky immortal full circle, it didn't change the fact that he was a Xian immortal. Li Si and Bai Xingxue were self-proclaimed geniuses, but they had never fought against a Xian immortal. Even if he had fought with an immortal before, it would have been the one who had been beaten up. Senior Brother Ning seems to like to use his fists and feet to teach people a lesson. Li Zhangtong, Yan Feiwu, Yang Xiaolong, and others who had witnessed Ning Qi's methods before had strange expressions on their faces. Initially, when Ling Yuan was waiting for Ning Qi in the stone pavilion, everyone thought there would be a fierce battle, but in the end, Ling Yuan was knocked unconscious by Ning Qi with 3 strikes of the rod. Using a stick to hit people was also within the scope of fist and leg techniques. At that time, there were people who felt that Ning Qi's methods did not have much of an immortal aura, but were instead tainted with a lot of mortal aura. Beautiful! Hao Shuai pounded the table in excitement. The other geniuses at the same table as him were startled and glared at Hao Shuai with dissatisfaction. But that was all. They all knew that Hao Shuai had 3 low-grade Dao artifacts on him. No one would be stupid enough to provoke him. Ning Qi's punches landed on Jiang Yu's body again and again. Every punch was basically with his full strength, making Jiang Yu unable to fight back at all. During this period, Ning Qi had more than once thought of using the emotion destroyer swordsmanship to kill Jiang Yu with one strike. However, he had a hunch. The first strike of the emotion destroyer swordsmanship might not be able to kill a Xian immortal. Even if Jiang Yu suppressed his cultivation, he still wouldn't be able to kill him. This hunch was very strong and even real, as if he had known it all along. Apart from that, Ning Qi also suspected that if Jiang Yu died here today, it would have a huge impact on the future generations. After all, Jiang Yu was not a nobody like Dong Kuan. The butterfly effect that he could cause might directly affect Ning Qi. Would Ning Qi still marry Fang Lingming? Would he still have those brothers and friends? Would he still have those experiences? Would he even travel from Earth to this body with the same name and surname in the Qin Tang Empire? Ning Qi dared not be sure, nor did he dare to gamble. Other than the killing intent in Ning Qi's heart when he first saw Jiang Yu, now that he had calmed down, he had to consider many things. If he couldn't kill Jiang Yu, it would be great to beat him up. Have I seen him before? That's impossible. Why don't I have any impression of him? Jiang Yu adjusted his posture with difficulty to reduce the pain when Ning Qi's fist landed on his body. He was like a 3-year-old child facing an adult. If he didn't release his cultivation, he wouldn't be able to fight back. At the same time, Jiang Yu noticed that the way Ning Qi looked at him was somewhat unusual. It was a little unusual, so he tried hard to recall if he had unintentionally offended the other party when he was in the family. Unfortunately, he couldn't think of anything. There were too many people in the Jiang family. Most of the time, he could only distinguish them by the brand on his body. After young Master Jiang Yu suppressed his cultivation, he's no match for young Master Ning at all. Shingong Shui chuckled and glanced at Shingong Immortal Monarch. Shingong Immortal Monarch's expression was a little ugly, but the way he looked at Ning Qi had changed greatly. He originally thought that Ning Qi's potential was not as good as Jiang Yu's, but Jiang Yu, who had comprehended Dao talismans, was no match for Ning Qi at all when using the same cultivation level. This surprised him and all the immortal lords present. The Heavenly Dao Clan. The Heavenly Dao Clan is indeed worthy of being the clan closest to the Heavenly Dao. Their disciples are already so monstrous. Just how terrifying are those ancestors? Zhuoqiu Immortal Lord mumbled to himself. In truth, the ancient Immortal Clan is also very powerful. If it weren't for the fact that they betrayed the common people of the immortal realm and colluded with the devils, and were ambushed and annihilated by the Heavenly Dao Clan, the Heavenly Dao Clan might not have been able to defeat the transcendent existences of the ancient Immortal Clan. There is a way out, White Crane Immortal Lord said indifferently. Pft, I heard that before you took human form, you were raised by an ancient immortal for a period of time. Looks like it's true. You still have a trace of yearning for an ancient immortal? The Eastern Sea Immortal Lord sneered with a mocking look in his eyes. When the other Immortal Lords heard this, they felt that the Eastern Sea Immortal Lord's words were filled with killing intent. Currently, there were 2 disciples of the Heavenly Dao Clan present. Although they were fighting, it was not that they did not hear the Eastern Sea Immortal Lord's words. There is no need for you to say anything about my relationship with an ancient immortal. Before I took human form, I did indeed cultivate under an ancient immortal. However, that is already in the past. The Heavenly Dao Clan must have known about this a long time ago. If I still had any relationship with the ancient Immortal Clan, you wouldn't have been able to see me today. White Crane Immortal Lord sneered. The Eastern Sea Immortal Lord smiled. Don't be so nervous. I don't mean anything by it. White Crane Immortal Lord seemed to want to say something more, but at this moment, everyone noticed that the aura within the restrictive technique that Shingong Immortal Lord had set up was somewhat different. Jiang Yu, who had suppressed his cultivation to the peak of the Heaven Immortal Realm, suddenly let out a low growl. His aura immediately surged like a hot knife through butter. Golden Immortal, Zenith Heaven Golden Immortal, Xian, immortal. Young Master Jiangyu, you broke the rules. Chapter 2588. When the immortals present saw that Jiangyu had disregarded his previous promise and returned to his original cultivation, a trace of astonishment flashed across their faces. Was he planning to crush Ningqi with his arcane, immortal cultivation base? You should have done so long ago. The corner of Li Si's lips curled up. If it were him, he would never do something as foolish as suppressing his cultivation base to fight. Now that Jiangyu had regained his cultivation base, he was looking forward to see if Ningqi could still act so arrogantly in front of our arcane immortal. You have broken the rules. I'm afraid Miss Shui will not marry a vile man like you. Ningqi smiled. Jiangyu maintained his smile. He was not in a hurry to suppress Ningqi. He first looked at Shingong Shui, then at Shingong Immortal Lord, and said, as a descendant of the Jiang family of the Heavenly Dao clan, if not for Shingong Shui's great Dao body, why would I come here to be humiliated? A mere daughter of an immortal lord. She is nothing in my eyes. The entire hall was shocked by his words. Shingong Immortal Lord's expression turned ugly, because Jiang Yu's tone showed that he was nothing in his eyes. However, he could not refute it because Jiang Yu was backed by the Jiang family. If they were to argue, a mere immortal lord of the ancestral star like him was nothing in the eyes of the Jiang family. Shingong Shui was not angered. Instead, she chuckled and said, "This is young Master Jiang Yu's true temperament. I'm sorry for making things difficult for you. Shingong Shui, do you think you can escape from my grasp? I will take care of this brat today, and wash away my humiliation. Just you wait on the ancestral star. The next time I come to Emperor Ancestral City, I won't be alone." Jiang Yu looked at Shingong Shui and smiled. Shingong Shui's expression changed slightly. Jiang Yu had now shed all pretense of cordiality and was threatening her directly. More importantly, his threat might come true. Perhaps Shui will already be married by then. Shingong Shui glanced at Ningqi and smiled shyly. Jiang Yu could no longer hold back the anger in his heart. Majestic great Dao energy surged out of his body. The white light this time was countless times more dazzling than before. Except for immortal dukes and Tai genuine immortals, all the immortals, including the profound immortals, could not open their eyes. Mysterious runes condensed into a sword in the air above Jiang Yu. This time, the sword of Dao runes had just been formed, but it already filled the hall with endless pressure. Its power was several times stronger than before. Where is young Master Ning? Where did that guy go? Ran away? Someone suddenly realized that Ningqi had disappeared from where he was standing. Many pairs of astonished eyes looked around, and finally, they saw Ningqi at the entrance of the hall. This distance should be enough, Ningqi muttered to himself. The immortal execution bow immediately appeared in his hand. He drew his bow. Pull the bowstring. The majestic power of the great path surged wildly and condensed into a golden arrow. The bowstring was still pulled back, and veins that looked like earthworms appeared on Ningqi's arm. This is the bow that killed Jiang Wei. Li Si and the others were shocked. They were not the only ones. Many of the immortals present had seen the scene of Ningqi killing Jiang Wei in the Lost Ghost. Therefore, when they saw Ningqi take out the immortal execution bow, their eyes were filled with anticipation. Would Ningqi be able to kill a profound immortal this time? Even if that profound immortal was just an illusion. A superior grade Dao artifact? The Tai true immortals present were somewhat shocked. They could immediately tell the grade of the immortal execution bow. However, they were not shocked by the bow, but by the fact that a mere heaven immortal like Ningqi could wield a superior grade Dao artifact. Isn't the Tiandao clan a little too extravagant? A superior grade Dao artifact was actually given to a heaven immortal. Perhaps the great war of immortals and demons has impoverished the vast immortal realm, but enriched the Tiandao clan. It is said that all the secret treasures of the ancient immortal clan have fallen into their hands. In this era where everything was being done and equipment refiners were extremely rare, when they saw a heaven immortal wielding a superior grade Dao artifact, they were shocked and angry because they felt that it was unfair. Extremely unfair. The clan actually gave him a superior grade Dao artifact? After seeing the immortal execution Bao, Jiang Yu's breathing became chaotic. He was shocked and angry, but he quickly adjusted his state of mind. No matter who Ning Qi's backer in the clan was, even if he took out a superior grade Dao artifact this time, it was impossible for him to defeat Jiang Yu. A mere heaven immortal would definitely not be able to unleash the true power of a superior grade Dao artifact. Jiang Yu was already an early-stage profound immortal, so he had absolute confidence that he could suppress Ning Qi. It's not enough, Ning Qi had already exerted his strength to the limit, but he discovered that the Dao talisman sword above Jiang Wei's head was not weaker than his golden arrow. In fact, it was even vaguely stronger than the golden arrow. A sigh was heard. In the next moment, the silver dragon tattoo on Ning Qi's body began to heat up. Then, he discovered that his strength was skyrocketing. The bowstring was pulled back by another inch. Then, 2 inches, 3 inches, and the golden arrow condensed from the power of the great Tao. Its aura was getting more and more terrifying. The human immortals near the entrance of the hall no longer dared to sit where they were. They all moved to the side, distancing themselves from Ning Qi. This was because Ning Qi's current aura was no weaker than Jiang Yu's. Creak, a soft sound suddenly came from the immortal exterminating Bao. At this moment, the immortal exterminating Bao had been pulled to a full moon state by Ning Qi. Impossible! Shingong, Immortal Lord, and the others looked at this scene in shock. A full moon meant that Ning Qi had most likely mobilized the full power of this superior grade Dao tool. This kid's divine strength is astonishing. Could it be that the Tiandao family has found a way to turn immortals into demons with unparalleled strength? Zhuoqiu, Immortal Lord's eyes flashed with a trace of surprise. Thanks. Ning Qi thanked him in his heart. Then, a trace of killing intent suddenly appeared in his eyes as he stared coldly at the slightly stunned Jiang Yu. Keep him alive. Be obedient. The killing intent in Ning Qi's eyes gradually dissipated. At the same time, Jiang Yu's Dao talisman sword had already moved. Its speed was countless times faster than before. However, Ning Qi was already prepared. The golden arrow turned into a golden ray and collided with the Dao talisman sword. The golden ray instantly drowned Jiang Yu's Dao talisman sword and continued shooting at Jiang Yu. Its target was between Jiang Yu's legs. Damn it! Jiang Yu immediately took out his superior grade Dao tool. On the day he advanced to the Xian immortal realm, his family had bestowed him a superior grade Dao tool. However, before this, he felt that there was no need to take out an superior grade Dao tool to deal with Ning Qi. But now, he felt danger. Jiang Yu's superior grade Dao tool was a black flag. Once this superior grade Dao tool was taken out, countless rays of black light shot out from the flag in an attempt to stop the golden arrow. Chapter 2589. What is the origin of that Bao? Jiang Yu was both shocked and furious. They were both superior grade Dao treasures, so how could it have the strength to destroy his 5-direction devilish flags after exchanging a blow with his Dao talisman sword? He did not know that apart from the power of the immortal slaying Bao, the golden arrow was augmented by another mysterious power. Just as the golden arrow was about to land on Jiang Yu, a gourd suddenly rushed out of his body. At the same time, Jiang Yu's expression relaxed considerably. No matter what, this supreme-grade Dao treasure should be able to block the arrow for him, right? But the moment the gourd appeared, it seemed to be attracted by something and disappeared with a whoosh. At the same time, Ning Qi's expression turned strange. In his sea of consciousness, there was an additional reddish-gold gourd. Ding! Congratulations on completing the mission. You have obtained the supreme-grade Tao treasure, Immortal Slaying Gourd. How could this be? Jiang Yu's face revealed a trace of astonishment. Then, he felt an immense pain from his lower body. He could not help but howl as he half knelt on the ground. Drops of fresh blood fell on the green jade-paved ground, appearing exceptionally bright. The immortals at the scene had a strange expression on their faces. Although they couldn't see clearly where Jiang Yu was injured, they were certain that the golden arrow had injured something. This is a feud that will not end until one party is dead? Why is the Tiandao family so hostile? Has the internal strife of the same clan reached such a serious stage? Shengong, Immortal Lord, and the rest found it hard to believe. They had always thought that the Tiandao family was as united as an iron plate. Even if there were occasional conflicts, they would not completely fall out with each other. But now, it seemed that their guess was wrong. All the male immortals present felt a chill between their legs. They looked at Ning Qi with a trace of fear in their eyes. At the same time, they were curious. Where did the gourd that had appeared before Jiang Yu go? Before they came, news had reached Emperor Progenitor City that the person who was going to marry Shengong Shui, from the Tiandao family, had brought a supreme-grade Tao treasure as a betrothal gift. It was a gourd. Logically speaking, it should be the one just now. The gourd? Where did the gourd go? Shengong, Immortal Lord, and the others had already noticed this. They looked at each other with suspicion. There were only 7 Immortal Lords present. Only an immortal emperor would be able to take the gourd away under their noses. However, there were no immortals around. With D present, they began to suspect each other. As for Ning Qi, who was standing at the entrance of the hall, no one doubted him. They were certain that Ning Qi would not be able to take away the gourd from such a distance. Young Master Jiang Yu, are you all right? Shengong, Immortal Lord, temporarily put the matter of the betrothal gift aside. After all, with the current situation, it was almost impossible for Shengong Shui, to marry Jiang Yu again. Naturally, the betrothal gift would not belong to him. The most important thing now was to see how serious Jiang Yu's injuries were. If news of Bian being injured were to spread to the other side would probably be infuriated. Even though he was an immortal lord, he would not be able to withstand the fury of the other side. However, what made Shengong, Immortal Lord, rejoice was that the person who injured Jiang Yu was another Tiandao family disciple. Perhaps this would be classified as an internal conflict within the family and would not implicate him. After the intense pain, the pained expression on Jiang Yu's face gradually faded. He became extremely calm, or even cold and gloomy. He slowly stood up. The bloodstains on his lower body had already disappeared, and he looked as if he had never been injured. He coldly looked at Ning Qi, and a trace of resentment appeared in his eyes. With his strength, he should have been able to regrow his limbs, but Ning Qi's arrow seemed to have a special power that was affecting him. It made it impossible for him to regrow the severed limbs that Ning Qi had shot off. I've underestimated you today. The corners of Jiang Yu's lips curled up slightly. His voice became softer. I've lost. Return the gourd to me and I'll go back to the family. The crowd did not expect Jiang Yu to admit defeat. Their eyes were filled with surprise. Logically speaking, with Jiang Yu's current strength, he should still be able to fight Ning Qi. However, they did not know that Jiang Yu had an additional trace of fear in his heart. A trace of fear towards the immortal execution bow in Ning Qi's hand. If he continued to fight, he was afraid that his other limbs would be broken. By then, even if he was certain that Ning Qi would not dare to kill him, he would still embarrass himself in front of millions of immortals. If the news spread to the family, he would not be able to raise his head in public. Could it be that the gourd was taken away by this brat? Impossible. A mere heaven immortal, no matter how strong his combat strength is, It's impossible for him to steal that supreme-grade Dao item under our noses. Shengong, Immortal Lord, and the rest were first shocked before shaking their heads in their hearts. Gourd? That gourd just now? Ningqi was a little shocked. Don't put on an act. Although I don't know what means you used to steal it, it's definitely with you. Jiang Yu said coldly. Have you really misunderstood me, or are you trying to slander me? Do you think you can avoid the clan's punishment by throwing the blame on me after losing something? Ningqi said indifferently with a hint of mockery in his eyes. Everyone came to a sudden realization, and the last trace of doubt in their hearts dissipated. Even Li Si and the rest did not think that the gourd would be with Ningqi. It was impossible. The gourd just disappeared on its own. Jiang Yu was a little sad and angry. He had thought that this trip to the Emperor Ancestor City would be very simple. He would just have to go through the motions and bring Shengong Shui back to his clan. However, he had never expected that a member of his clan would suddenly appear. He had suffered losses at his hands time and time again. Now, he had even lost the betrothal gift he had brought. If he went back like this, he would definitely become the laughingstock of the clan and would not be put in an important position in the future. Please help Jiang Yu, Immortal Emperor Wang Yue. Jiang Yu suddenly bowed to the sky. Everyone, from immortal lords to human immortals, was shocked by this scene. Could it be that Jiang Yu and Immortal Emperor Wang Yue were friends? Or could Immortal Emperor Wang Yue be from the Tiandao family? Otherwise, there was no way to explain Jiang Yu's current actions. Jiang Yu, I'm very disappointed. Your parents might be very disappointed too. A deep voice sounded. Then, everyone saw a young man in a Taoist robe appear beside Jiang Yu. There was a crescent moon mark on his forehead. Immortal Emperor Wang Yue? Bao Charcoal? Please help Jiang Yu, Uncle Master. Jiang Yu knelt before the young man in the Taoist robe. Uncle Master? All the immortal lords were shocked. It seemed that Immortal Emperor Wang Yue was really from the Tiandao family. Get up. Immortal Emperor Wang Yue glanced at Jiang Yu indifferently before his gaze fell on Ningqi. You are also a member of the Jiang family, but you are so cruel to your own clan member. This is not good. Chapter 2590. Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air when they saw Ningqi's expression. Even an immortal monarch would tremble in fear when facing an immortal emperor. The two of them weren't on the same level. It was a gap that couldn't be made up for with numbers. However, Ningqi's carefree expression was so arrogant. Even in front of Wang Yue, Immortal Emperor, he didn't hold back at all. Are all disciples from the Heavenly Dao clan so bold? We can't compare to him in this aspect. The group of immortal monarchs looked at each other and had the same thought. Wang Yue, Immortal Emperor Li Si and the others' attention was on Wang Yue, Immortal Emperor. They were shocked when Lang Ye appeared, but later on, they thought that it was just an illusion. Plus, Lang Ye was still a profound immortal and had yet to reach the Emperor realm. Thus, they quickly calmed down. However, things were different after Immortal Emperor Wang Yue appeared. If this illusion was truly based on the various memories of the tomb owner, then what they were seeing right now was an immortal emperor who once lived in this world and had the ability to reach the heavens. There was a reason why Ningqi was so carefree. Just now, he asked Silver Dragon if Jiang Yu's injury could be healed. After all, Ningqi could feel that the power of that arrow had far surpassed the limit of the immortal execution bow. Therefore, he guessed that Silver Dragon not only temporarily increased his strength, but also did something to the immortal execution bow. That was why it could easily destroy an upper-grade Dao tool of the same level. Silver Dragon's answer was, no. Even if it could, it would cost a lot. When it replied, there was a trace of undetectable arrogance in its tone. I've been to the Jiang clan, but I've never seen you. Wang Yue, Immortal Emperor, looked at Ningqi indifferently. Ningqi nodded. Wang Yue, Immortal Emperor, frowned. The meaning of his words was clear, but the other party was playing dumb. Uncle Master, a supreme-grade Dao tool that the clan prepared for me was stolen by this kid. Jiang Yu gritted his teeth and looked at Ning Qi, then said to Wang Yue, Immortal Emperor. He doesn't have the aura of that Dao tool. Wang Yue, Immortal Emperor, said indifferently. How is that possible? Who else could it be if not him? There was a hint of panic in Jiang Yu's eyes. If the gourd had not been stolen by Ning Qi, he would have had to bear the responsibility of losing the supreme-grade Dao artifact. It would be fine if he could bring Shingong Shui back to the Jiang family. However, if he could not even bring Shingong Shui back and lost a supreme-grade Dao artifact, he would regret it for the rest of his life. He could forget about using the Jiang family's resources. He would be like those outer disciples, becoming shadow-like existences that worked for those geniuses. If Ning Qi knew what he was thinking, such existences would be called logistics on Earth. Let's talk about the Dao artifact later. Today is your wedding day. It is not advisable for you to fight with others. Let's end things here. His eyes inadvertently glanced at Jiang Yu's crotch. Then, he looked at Shingong, Immortal Emperor, and said with a smile, Shingong Hu, hand your daughter over to Jiang Yu. Let them return to the Jiang family together. Shingong, Immortal Monarch, was stunned for a moment. He was in a dilemma. The situation today had already become so unbearable, and the wedding still had to go on? Most importantly, the betrothal gift that he was prepared to accept had disappeared without a trace. He did not know which sneaky fellow had gotten his hands on it. Just marry Shingong Shui off just like that? He felt that it was not worth it. For the sake of the bigger picture, if you don't let him take Shui away today, I'm afraid that the Jiang family's revenge will be very intense. Zhuoqiu, Immortal Emperor's voice rang in Shingong, Immortal Emperor's ears. Shingong, Immortal Emperor, immediately put on a fawning smile and said to Shingong Shui, Immortal Emperor Wang Yue has come to attend your wedding today. Don't throw a tantrum and go home with young Master Jiang Yu. Shingong Shui's expression was somewhat solemn. Everyone suddenly felt that the hall had become colder. Those below the grand heavenly immortal realm began to shiver. Crystalline snowflakes condensed in the void and covered the ground. In the blink of an eye, the entire hall had turned into a world of white ice and snow. A small blizzard had condensed on Shingong Shui's body. Her eyes gradually turned white as she stared at Immortal Monarch Wang Yue. The Immortal Emperor said, I've said it before. Young Master Ning is also a disciple of the Heavenly Dao clan. I'll marry him, not Jiang Yu. The Immortal Emperor's stance was as if he was going to fight an Immortal Emperor. All the immortals present were shocked. Shingong, Immortal Emperor, was even more shocked. Cold sweat instantly appeared on his forehead. Little girl, you have the great Dao physique. Perhaps one day when you reach the Immortal Emperor realm, I won't be your match. But now you're not my match. Immortal Emperor Wang Yue's lips curled up slightly. With a gentle wave of his hand, the temperature in the hall immediately warmed up. The snowflakes that appeared earlier disappeared without a trace like bubbles. Shingong Shui's eyes also returned to their original color. There was a deep sense of fear in her eyes. With her great Dao strength, she might stand a chance against an immortal emperor as long as she disregarded her own life. But she could not even withstand a single move from Immortal Emperor Wang Yue. Cough, cough. With a light cough, everyone's attention was immediately drawn to Ning Qi. Ning Qi smiled at Immortal Emperor Wang Yue and said, Senior Wang Yue, although your seniority is higher than ours and your cultivation is stronger than ours, you can't be unreasonable. Jiang Yu lost the battle between me and Miss Shui, naturally has to marry me. Why do you have to interfere? After all, this is our family's matter. Ning Qi emphasized the word our. He believed that Immortal Emperor Wang Yue understood the meaning behind it. But perhaps because Immortal Emperor Wang Yue had a deep relationship with Jiang Yu's parents, Immortal Emperor Wang Yue acted as if he did not understand. He smiled at Ningqi and said, "The news I received is that Jiang Yu is going to marry Shengong Shuer, not you." As soon as he finished speaking, a special force instantly enveloped Ningqi. He could not speak or move his hands, as if he was petrified. Ningqi clearly saw a flash of mockery in Immortal Emperor Wang Yue's eyes. "All right, you can leave now." Immortal Emperor Wang Yue smiled at Jiang Yu. Then, Shengong Shuer walked step by step to Jiang Yu's side like a puppet. "Thank you, Uncle Master." Jiang Yu's eyes were filled with joy. He glared at Ningqi and thought to himself that when he returned to his family, he would slowly settle the score with Ningqi. As long as he could bring back Shengong Shuer's great Tao body today, he would be able to answer to his family. Shengong Immortal Emperor and the rest could already tell that Shengong Shuer was not in a good state. But they dared not speak after glancing at Immortal Emperor Wang Yue. Chapter 2591. Do you really think that my essence energy is enough for you to kill an immortal emperor? In order to force the immortal executioner gourd out, I'm going to sleep for at least 100 years. You've already obtained the immortal executioner gourd, so don't worry about anything else. Remember, you're not a person of this era. After the silver dragon's voice sounded, there was no more sound, as if it had fallen into a deep sleep. The hall was extremely quiet. Only the footsteps of Jiang Yu and Shengong Shuer could be heard. All the immortals were watching the two of them as they left. When they reached the entrance of the hall, a green-robed old man appeared in front of Jiang Yu. As soon as Jiang Yu saw the old man, fear filled his face and disbelief filled his eyes. Immediately after, the green-robed old man glanced at him, and Jiang Yu's body stiffened on the spot, unable to move. Shengong Shuer regained control of her body after being stunned for a while. She turned around angrily and glared at Wang Yue, Immortal Emperor. As soon as the green-robed old man appeared, the Wang Yue Immortal Emperor's expression changed a few times. Ningqi's eyes were sharp, and he seemed to see a flash of awe in the Wang Yue Immortal Emperor's eyes. Who is this old man? Could it be a senior from the Tiandao clan? While the others were puzzled and tried to guess the green-robed old man's background, Immortal Lord Shengong and the others were shocked. As immortal lords of the ancestral star, they had naturally seen the green-robed old man before. There were two immortal emperors in the ancestral star, one of which was widely known as the Moon Immortal Emperor, while the other one was elusive and elusive. There were not many, but the 9 deity monarchs on the ancestral star were fortunate enough to see it once. This green-robed old man was the mysterious Immortal Emperor. None of the immortal lords present were fools. Even Shengong Immortal Lord knew this. He could invite immortal lords to the banquet, but he definitely could not invite an immortal emperor. Today, Immortal Emperor Wang Yue appeared here because of Jiang Yu. Why would this mysterious immortal emperor, whose name no one knew, appear here? It's that senior. He's living in this era? Ningqi took a closer look at the green-robed old man and was shocked. If the green-robed old man could live until the future, why didn't anyone know about these immortal monarchs in the hall, including Wang Yue Immortal Emperor? Shengong Immortal Lord was only left with a strand of his divine soul. Lang Ye, on the other hand, had become the publicly acknowledged, the only immortal emperor? Moongazer Serpent, you disappoint me. Although the green-robed old man was standing at a lower position, the way he looked at Wang Yue Immortal Emperor was like a god looking down at an ant in this world. There was a hint of disdain in his calmness. The old man's words shocked every immortal present. It was as if he was not addressing an immortal emperor, but a junior who had disappointed his seniors. How could there be someone on the ancestral star who could address Immortal Emperor Wang Yue in such a manner? Literally flipped their world upside down. World Temple. The corner of Wang Yue Immortal Emperor's mouth twitched, and he squeezed out a smile. Old senior, I wonder what I did wrong to make you so disappointed? His respectful tone made all the immortals present gasp in unison, and they became even more curious about the identity and origin of the azure-robed old man. This allusion is interesting. An immortal emperor is calling this old man senior? Could this old man be the master of the tomb of the god of sin? The turtle-riding old man from the South Sea sent a voice transmission in amusement. In the end, he could not help but feel puzzled when he noticed that Bai Xingxue, Li Si, and the other Grand Luo wore very serious expressions. I don't know about anything else, but I do know that this azure-robed old man is definitely not the master of the divine tomb of the god of sin. He is far more terrifying than you can imagine. Fortunately, this is just an illusion. Bai Xingxue sent a voice transmission with a hint of relief. Bai Xingxue, do you know the origin of this azure-robed old man? Tai Yuan was slightly taken aback. How did Jiang Feng die? Bai Xingxue asked with a sneer. The turtle-riding old man from the South Sea gasped and looked at the azure-robed old man in disbelief. He had heard that the patriarch of the Jiang family of the Central Empire, Jiang Feng, who was a primordial unity true immortal, was killed by an inconspicuous old man with a single sword strike after coming to the ancestral star. Could it be this azure-robed old man? The shock in the turtle-riding old man's heart surged like a tidal wave when he thought of the vast difference in time between this place and the future. That old man was definitely an immortal emperor more powerful than immortal Emperor Wang Yu, which meant that the immortal realm of their era had another existence on the ancestral star apart from the immortal Emperor Langya. An old immortal emperor who had lived for who knows how long and whose experience was countless times more profound than the immortal Emperor Langya? The Grand Luo who came from the divine tomb of the god of sin seemed to have figured that out as well, and the shock on their faces was no less than that of the turtle-riding old man. If this illusion is real, the information we received would be extremely important. A second immortal emperor, wouldn't we have a chance to become an immortal monarch if we could become his disciple? Li Si appeared rather excited. While his father was a primordial unity true immortal as well, there were two major realms between the two compared to an immortal emperor, and those two realms were an insurmountable chasm. Now that he knew the azure-robed old man's true strength, he would be done for when he returned to the ancestral star. There was a chance that he could find the old man and become his disciple. It was a great opportunity that was more precious than a supreme-grade sage item. I've said it before, I don't like the dogs of the Tiandao clan running amok on the ancestral star. The azure-robed old man said flatly. The faces of the immortals present turned green at those words. Dogs of the Tiandao clan? Who was that old man? How dare he use such words on the Tiandao clan? If the Tiandao clan learned of it, would they not unleash their immortal wrath and purify the entire ancestral star? Everyone, including them, would be reduced to ashes. There was a hint of fear in Jiang Yu's eyes, but he forced himself to calm down and looked pleadingly at the Moon Immortal Emperor. He was aware of the old man's existence, but the clan did mention that he was merely an arcane immortal. Even if the old man knew that he had come to the ancestral star, the old man would not care, much less come in person. However, none of the Tiandao clan's existences beyond the arcane, immortal level would be able to return. That was why he had chosen to come alone, but never did he imagine that he would end up provoking the old man. Old senior, why do you say that? Jiang Yu has been very law-abiding ever since he came to the ancestral star. He has not even killed an ant. The Moon Immortal Emperor smiled. You haven't even killed an ant before? Then why was Er's soul subdued just now? A mere dog dared to kidnap someone from my ancestral star right in front of my eyes? The corner of the azure-robed old man's mouth curled into a mocking smile. A hint of fear flashed in the Moon Immortal Emperor's eyes at those words, and he quickly said, Old senior, I didn't know Shengong Shui. A flash of a sword. Chapter 2592. Calm down, this is just an illusion. The immortals from the divine tomb all murmured in their hearts. They did not believe that someone could kill an immortal emperor so easily. Look at the shock on the faces of these illusions. TSK, if we didn't know that this was just an illusion, I'm afraid we would be the same as them. Hao Shui forced himself to calm down, looked around and forced a smile. But the celestial immortals at the same table with him did not feel the same. Even if it was an illusion, it was too real. Could it be that a long time ago, there really was an immortal Emperor Wang Yue who was killed by a sword? They had decided to leave the divine tomb, so they had to find the truth and those possibilities. An ancient book that recorded clues and traces. The fear in Jiang Yu's eyes was so thick that it seemed like water was about to drip out. His body was clearly suppressed by the green-robed elder, but he still trembled uncontrollably. Cold sweat covered his entire body, especially between his legs. There was already a trace of wetness, but the trace seemed to be spreading. It seemed to be spurting out. From human immortals to immortal monarchs, everyone's expression was almost exactly the same. Fear, panic, disbelief. It was filled with all kinds of negative emotions. One of the negative emotions was as if their belief had suddenly been overturned. It was loss from the beginning of their cultivation. They had a common goal: to become an immortal emperor, to become the supreme existence in the immortal world, and to be famous throughout the world. But now, this goal, or rather, their dream, their belief, was shattered by the green-robed elder's sword. It was as if they had died together with immortal Emperor Wang Yue. How could an immortal emperor be killed by a sword? Since the end of the Great War of the Immortals and Demons, no one had heard of an immortal emperor dying. It was hard for them to believe that in their short lives, they would experience the process of an immortal emperor's death. Moreover, it was so close. Scram, immediately. The green-robed elder put away his sword and shouted at Jiang Yu. Jiang Yu immediately found that he could move. He did not even leave a word and fled in panic, quickly disappearing from everyone's sight. However, when he left, there was a gust of wind. Shengong Shui frowned slightly and revealed a look of disgust. Then, she immediately smiled at the green-robed old man and said, "Grandpa, thank you so much. Otherwise, I would have been taken to the Jiang family." Shengong, Immortal Master, and the others were astounded. Even the shock from the death of the Wang Yue Immortal Monarch was replaced by a different kind of shock. Did Shengong Shui know this old man in a green robe? "You have a natural Dao physique, and will become an immortal emperor in the future. You are not someone that the Moongazer serpent can compare to. Your father is truly blind and short-sighted to be willing to marry you to the dogs-hit Jiang clan." The azure-robed elder coldly snorted, then flicked his sleeve and left. But after taking a few steps, he suddenly turned around and looked at Ning Qi. "You're also a dog of the Tiandao clan. But since you didn't cause any trouble, I'll give you some time. Next time I come to Emperor Ancestral City, if you're still here, you don't have to go back here." With that, the azure-robed elder turned and left. No one present dared to stop him. They could only watch as he disappeared from their sight. Ning Qi was speechless. He really wanted to tell the azure-robed elder that he was an ally. Including this time, he had already been expelled by the azure-robed elder twice. When the azure-robed elder left, he was obviously cursing Shengong, Immortal Master. However, Shengong, Immortal Master, did not dare to be angry. Even the Moongazer Immortal Monarch was a small fry. So what if an immortal master like him was scolded? However, the other immortal monarchs wore grim expressions. They had learned two important pieces of news today. First, the other mysterious immortal emperor on the ancestral star was extremely powerful. He was so powerful that even the Moongazer Immortal Emperor, who was on par with him, could easily slay him. Second, the mysterious Immortal Emperor clearly held a grudge against the Tiandao family. In this era where the Tiandao family reigned supreme, The mysterious immortal emperor must have an unfathomable background for daring to scold the Moongazer immortal emperor. However, they could not think of any faction in the immortal realm that could stand against the Tiandao family. Once the strongest ancient immortal clan had declined due to the great war of immortals and demons. Some were dead while others were crippled. There were not many ancient immortals in the immortal realm now. Shingong, what should we do with the Moongazer immortal emperor's corpse? Zhuoqiu immortal master was the first to break the silence. He lowered his head and glanced at the Moongazer immortal emperor's corpse with a hint of greed in his eyes. This was the body of an immortal emperor. Although he was already dead, there might still be some Tao talismans left in his body. If they could comprehend the mysteries within, they might have the opportunity to become immortal emperors. Zhuoqiu immortal master was not the only one who thought of that. Shingong immortal master and the others had thought of that as well. However, now was clearly not the time to divide the Moongazer immortal emperor's corpse, for there was still a disciple of the Tiandao family present. The Moongazer immortal emperor's death was because of Jiang Yu, who hailed from the Tiandao family and even addressed the Moongazer immortal emperor as senior uncle. In that case, it would not be long before the Jiang family would descend upon the homeworld. The Moongazer immortal emperor's corpse cannot be moved, at least not now. Shingong immortal master said somberly. The others looked at each other and nodded in tacit understanding. Although they could not move it, it would not be a big deal to comprehend the Tao talismans together, right? Shingong immortal master suddenly smiled at Ning Qi. Mr. Ning, you saw what happened today with your own eyes. We have absolutely nothing to do with it. Yes, there is indeed no connection at all. Ning Qi nodded with a smile. All the immortal masters present breathed a sigh of relief, and Shingong immortal master beamed at Shingong Shui. Shui, accompany Mr. Ning for a walk. Mr. Ning, please. Shingong Shui's expression returned to its previous indifference, but this time, she did not disobey Shingong immortal master's order. She glanced at Ning Qi and walked out of the hall. Ning Qi smiled and followed after her. The others looked at Ning Qi enviously. They did not expect that the green-robed old man's appearance would allow Ning Qi, who had failed in his attempt to snatch the bride, to snatch the beauty away. Lang Yu's gaze only retracted after Ning Qi and Shingong Shui left the hall. He then looked at the Moongazer immortal emperor's corpse and lamented that his trip to the ancestral star was not in vain. Not only did he witness the fall of an immortal emperor with his own eyes, he also witnessed the terrifying means of another immortal emperor in the ancestral star. After Ning Qi and Shingong Shui left, Shingong immortal master and the others immediately left the hall with the Moongazer immortal emperor's corpse. The Tai True immortals present were extremely envious, but they knew that with their cultivation and status, they were not even qualified to touch a hair on the Moongazer immortal emperor's corpse. Chapter 2593. After the Immortal Lord's residence sent the guests off, the group of people lined up and left the Immortal Lord's residence. Li Si and the others were having a small discussion among the group. This is the last chance. Why don't we hide here and search for the formation eye? Didn't you say that there might be secret treasures hidden in this illusion? How are we supposed to seize the fortune if the formation eye is destroyed? Ning Beixian has gained the identity of a Heavenly Tao clan's disciple out of nowhere. Even if there's a fortune, it might fall into his hands. With Immortal Emperor Wang Yu dead, Immortal Lord Shingong and the others won't focus their attention on us. We might not have such an opportunity in the future. The other Grand Luo had already realized that Li Si and Bai Xingxue were probably unwilling to let the secret treasure fall into Ning Qi's hands. Even if there was a slight chance, they wanted to stop it. However, they did not believe that the secret treasure would fall into Ning Qi's hands, so they did not agree. Moreover, could the formation eye be found so easily? When they entered the immortal monarch's estate this time, they'd already carefully observed it, and they didn't notice a place similar to the core of the formation. On the other hand, they didn't have the qualifications to enter any other places in the immortal monarch's estate. If they stayed here and were to be discovered by someone, then they might die here. They were in the illusion. After all, this was not the ancestral planet of the future. The cultivation of Grand Luo was only considered average, and there were mystic immortals, primordial unity true immortals, and immortal lords. Wait a little longer. Tai Yuan spoke. Bai Shengxue and Li Si had not been able to figure out Tai Yuan's origins during this time, but due to some small details, they suspected that Tai Yuan was a Grand Luo golden immortal like Jiang Wei. Seeing that Tai Yuan intended to stay here, the two looked at each other and tacitly agreed. At this moment, Bai Shengxue suddenly saw Mo Xie and the other two walking in front of him. Because the three of them had a close relationship with Ningqi, Bai Shengxue took a few more glances and suddenly realized that White Emperor's face was a little familiar. However, he couldn't find anyone similar to White Emperor in his memories. Illusion? Or have I seen this person in the future? Thinking about this, Bai Shengxue laughed at himself. The place where he was born had many ancient texts, so he knew a bit more about this era than Ningqi. Moreover, everyone had speculated that this era was at least 2,000 years away from where they were, which was even more than what Ningqi had speculated. If there were any immortals who could live from this era to the future, they would at least be immortal monarch. Immortal monarch? Bai Shengxue's expression changed. He finally understood why he felt such a sense of familiarity in his heart. Once upon a time, under the guidance of his master, he had once met the White Emperor Immortal Lord. However, his cultivation base was too low, and even his master was a junior of the White Emperor Immortal Lord. At that time, he didn't dare to look at the White Emperor Immortal Lord in detail. A glance. That man bears a striking resemblance to the White Emperor Immortal Lord, but he's much younger. Could he be the future White Emperor Immortal Lord? Bai Shengxue exclaimed. At the same time, he felt a trace of admiration for the tomb owner. If these illusions were constructed based on real memories, then the identity of the tomb owner was no small matter. If Wanwei Immortal Emperor, Shingong Immortal Lord, and the others could fabricate out of thin air, then even Langye Immortal Emperor could. Because they hadn't seen Langye Immortal Emperor before, they weren't sure if Langye Immortal Emperor looked like this. However, he had seen the green-robed old man with his own eyes. If the tomb owner hadn't seen the green-robed old man, then how could he construct an illusion? Let's go make friends with Langye Immortal Emperor. Tai Yuan suddenly transmitted his voice. Everyone looked forward and saw Langye Immortal Emperor chatting enthusiastically with another Xian Immortal with a smile. Although it's just an illusion, but this is our closest chance to become an Immortal Emperor. The Immortal Lord's mansion was huge. It was so big that it felt boundless. The hall from before was just a corner of the Immortal Lord's mansion. Ningqi and Shingong Shuer were currently walking in the back garden of the Immortal Lord's mansion. Stalks of immortal herbs and spiritual fruits filled with immortal qi decorated the entire garden like a fairyland. Because of Shingong Shuer's arrival, there were some snowflakes floating in the garden, making the garden even more beautiful. Shingong Shuer didn't speak, while Ningqi was observing the surrounding scenery. Don't take what was said in the hall seriously, Shingong Shuer said indifferently. When she spoke, she didn't even look at Ningqi, which was very different from when she used Ningqi as a shield in the hall. Of course I won't take it seriously. Ningqi retracted his gaze from a stalk of immortal fruit and smiled at Shingong Shuer. If he didn't suspect that Wang Shui was her future reincarnation, he wouldn't have stepped forward to be her shield. Of course, this also had to do with Jiang Yu. Even if he was a Sao, Ningqi might have sacrificed himself to disgust Jiang Yu. Shingong Shuer was stunned. She didn't expect Ningqi to say that. She looked at Ningqi suspiciously. Are you playing hard to get? Do I? Ningqi looked at Shingong Shuer with a faint smile. A while later, Shingong Shuer shook her head. Not really. I thought you were like Jiang Yu, coming for my great Tao body. Perhaps Jiang Yu really likes you. Ningqi smiled. When I was very, very young, someone told me that those who wanted to marry me in the future would do so for the sake of my great path body. I believed his words, so Shingong Shuer smiled and didn't continue. Was it that old senior just now? Ningqi was curious. Shingong Shuer smiled and didn't speak. The two fell into silence again. After a while, Shingong Shuer said to Ningqi, "Even an immortal lord would feel uncomfortable standing next to me. You don't seem to be afraid of the great Tao energy in my body? I have no enmity with you. Why should I be afraid of you?" Ningqi smiled. "That's true. But you should go." Shingong Shuer's lips curled up slightly. "The old grandpa hates the disciples of your heavenly Tao clan. Leave the ancestral star after you leave the immortal lord's mansion." "Not so fast. I will only leave the ancestral star in at least 9 years. I believe that with the old senior's magnanimity, 9 years won't anger him, right?" Ningqi smiled. 9 years is a long time? That's not a big problem. Shingong Shuer nodded. "Then I'll go first. We'll meet again if fate wills it." Ningqi smiled and cupped his hands, then turned and left. Chapter 2594. When Ningqi walked out of the immortal monarch's estate, he encountered numerous guards and elders of the immortal monarch's estate all along the way. It was even to the extent that he saw the gold dragon that pulled the carriage for Zhuoqiu immortal monarch that day. However, it had already taken human form now, and it was a handsome young man that sat at the 32nd level during the banquet. Without exception, all of them were rather respectful and cautious towards Ningqi. Even if Ningqi was only a perfection stage heavenly immortal, the world-shocking arrow he shot at the palace earlier was sufficient to arouse reverence in their hearts. Who'd seen a perfection stage heavenly immortal shoot down a dignified mysterious immortal that was similarly from a heavenly Tao clan? Injury? Plus, with Ningqi's background and the fact that he indirectly killed Wang Yu immortal emperor today, even a fool wouldn't dare to put on airs in front of Ningqi. Does young Master Ning not want to stay in the mansion for a few days? At the entrance of the immortal monarch's mansion, Sword Immortal Wuji had appeared out of nowhere, and he cupped his hands respectfully towards Ningqi. "No, I still have something to do." Ningqi smiled. Sword Immortal Wuji's gaze flickered slightly, and then he nodded and said respectfully, "Since it's like that, then take care, young Master Ning. The immortal monarch's estate will naturally give young Master Ning an explanation regarding the Dong clan." Ningqi's footsteps faltered. He looked toward Sword Immortal Wuji with a hint of a smile on his face. "How much gold and silver did you receive from the Dong clan for arranging for me to sit on the 31st level? Young Master Ning, please don't blame me. I have some friendship with that old dog Dong Yi. I was deceived by him for a moment and became his spear," Sword Immortal Wuji whispered in shame. "That's why we have to keep our eyes open in the future. This time, it was Munjiu Immortal Emperor who died. Who will die next time?" Ningqi said lightly. A trickle of cold sweat formed on Sword Immortal Wuji's forehead. Even though the person standing in front of him was a mere heavenly immortal, Ningqi's words gave him an extremely terrifying feeling. "Young Master Ning is right," Sword Immortal Wuji grimaced with difficulty. "Go." Ningqi waved his hand. Sword Immortal Wuji nodded and stepped back. Then, the door slowly closed. Only then did he heave a sigh of relief. "I was almost killed by that old dog Dong Yi." Sword Immortal Wuji couldn't help but feel a surge of anger. He lowered his head coldly and pondered for a while, then quickly left. Outside the immortal monarch's estate, Emosie's group of 3 approached with slight surprise. Brother Ning, there is a beauty in front of you, how can you be willing to come out so quickly? Mo Xie said in shock. Are you saying that I'm visiting a brothel? Ning Qi smiled. Mo Xie was slightly stunned when he heard this, and then terror appeared in his eyes. He glanced at the immortal monarch's estate and said in a low voice, Brother Ning, don't harm me. Haha, Brother Mo, this is for your blabbering. Emperor Bai said gloatingly. Just at this moment, two figures suddenly walked in front of everyone. When Mo Xie saw their faces clearly, his expression slightly changed and became cold. Emperor Bai and Ji Fei also took a step to the side, looking at the two people with a hint of mockery in their eyes. Normally, when they saw these two people, they would be very afraid, and they would have to show respect on their faces. However, today was different from the past. What had happened in the palace made them realize that the Dong clan had made a move this time. He had unintentionally tricked Ning Qi, but he had also tricked himself. They were Dong Jingyan and that beautiful middle-aged woman, Dong Kuan's parents. Young Master Ning, this lowly one acted on his own this time. Please forgive me, young Master Ning, Dong Jingyan said respectfully, cupping his hands in a salute. A grand luo bowed to a celestial immortal, but the people nearby felt that it was only natural. After all, these people had all attended the ceremony and knew who Ning Qi was. However, they did not dare to approach Ning Qi due to their lowly status, and could only look at Mo Xie and the others with envy. Zhuochu was both envious and afraid. He and Mo Xie had agreed to go to the Immortals' battle stage. Although he had secretly pleaded a few times, Mo Xie had not paid any attention to him. He did not know if he should leave or stand. He could not sit still. While the middle-aged woman's expression was also respectful, there was a trace of grief and resentment in the depths of her eyes, but ordinary people could not tell. You two are? Ning Qi said with a smile. Dong Jingyan's expression changed slightly. This lowly one is Dong Jingyan of the Dong family's third branch. Oh, you're Dong Kuan's father, right? Ning Qi smiled. That's right, Dong Jingyan nodded. You're not convinced that Dong Kuan died on the Immortals' battle stage? Ning Qi smiled. I'm already convinced. A bitter smile appeared on Dong Jingyan's face. Since you're convinced, then it's fine. There's no need for you two to act like this. You've used Sword Immortal Wuji this time, so the Dong family will be in some trouble. Don't mind me, I can't be bothered to find trouble with you. Ning Qi smiled and gestured to Mo Xie and the other two, then turned and left. Dong Jingyan and the middle-aged woman stood rooted to the ground. They knew that there would definitely be some friction between the Dong family and Sword Immortal Wuji, but Ning Qi had said it so openly. The meaning behind it was different. Thinking of how Sword Immortal Wuji had escorted Ning Qi to the door, they suddenly felt a little uncomfortable. Good night. After Ning Qi's group of 4 left, they found a nearby restaurant. Most of the immortals sitting at the nearby tables knew Ning Qi, but no one dared to make friends with Ning Qi because they didn't eat or drink to their heart's content. After a while, Ning Qi smiled at Mo Xie and the other two. I'm a little tired after shooting that arrow. I'm going to sleep for a few days. Go ahead, Brother Ning. Have a good rest. The White Emperor and the other two froze. They had already noticed that Ning Qi was not in a good state. Thinking of that shocking arrow, the mental energy and strength he had expended must have far exceeded that of an ordinary celestial immortal. It would be a problem if it was not enough. After bidding farewell to the 3 of them, Ning Qi returned to his room and quietly waited. Very swiftly, when his combat state ended, Ning Qi vanished with a swoosh. At this moment, even if immortal emperors were here, they wouldn't know where Ning Qi went. The top cultivation training ground. Ning Qi's mind moved, but there was nothing in front of him. He was shocked to find that the immortal slaying gourd seemed to be a little shameless, and had no intention of coming out of his spiritual sea. He had never encountered such a situation before. Even if it was the 3-pointed, double-edged sword, the weapon of Erlang Xianxing, he could call it out whenever he wanted. Ning Qi did not believe it. He concentrated on driving the immortal slaying gourd, trying to force it out of his spiritual sea. After about a month, Ning Qi sighed helplessly. He finally understood why the silver dragon had suddenly appeared that day. Its purpose was probably not to help him teach Jiang Yu a lesson, but to force the immortal slaying gourd in Jiang Yu's body to appear. At this moment, the silver dragon that had promised to sleep for 100 years suddenly moved again. The silver dragon tattoo on Ning Qi's body began to heat up, gradually turning from warm to boiling hot. It was so hot that Ning Qi almost could not bear it. A gourd suddenly appeared in front of Ning Qi and rolled on the ground. It turned into a big fat doll. Chapter 2595. You're the artifact spirit of the immortal slaying gourd? Ning Qi looked at the chubby baby in front of him with a strange expression. The chubby baby seemed to have come back to his senses and quickly shook his head like a rattled drum. I'm not an artifact spirit. I'm not the immortal slaying gourd. Then what are you? Ning Qi said with a faint smile. The chubby baby rolled his eyes and suddenly jumped in front of Ning Qi while howling. He jumped and hugged Ning Qi's knees. I am your son. Ning Qi sensed that the chubby baby didn't seem to have any ill intentions, so he didn't choose to kick him away. However, the words that came out of the chubby baby's mouth were too shameless. Stop pretending. I know you're the artifact spirit of the immortal slaying gourd. Logically speaking, a magic treasure at the level of the immortal slaying gourd should be a connate spirit treasure, right? Tell me, how did it become a top-grade Dao artifact? How did the Tiandao family not notice your existence? Ning Qi said lightly. The chubby baby continued to howl a few more times, but when he saw Ning Qi's indifferent expression, he immediately knew that his trick was useless. He wiped away his non-existent tears and jumped to the ground. He looked up at Ning Qi with a deep expression. Actually, I am your long-lost. If you dare to say that word, then I don't care about your gourd anymore. I'll return you to the Tiandao family and tell them about you. Ning Qi smiled. Seeing this, the chubby baby curled his lips helplessly. All right, I'm the immortal slaying gourd's artifact spirit. His country accent suddenly disappeared, and his voice was not as childish as before. He seemed to have matured a lot. Why didn't you want to admit it at first? Ning Qi smiled. What good will it do if I admit it? Aren't you asking me to kill people? I'm now a kind connate numinous treasure. I haven't been stained with blood for many years. The chubby baby said. Ning Qi only noticed the words, primordial numinous treasure. Then, are you deliberately hiding your level? Rumor has it that connate numinous treasures are extremely powerful. Why don't you let me have a look? I was born a natural spirit treasure. If I were to reveal my full might, it would blind your eyes. So, forget it. The chubby baby shook his head. Stop beating around the bush. What's going on? Ning Qi had a solemn expression as he said, If you don't speak, then I'll return you to the heavenly Dao clan. I don't want to hear any more nonsense. The plump baby was stunned. In the end, he said somewhat helplessly, It's very simple. I was beaten until I became afraid. The me that you see now is incomplete. My best friend was suppressed by the Tiandao clan. I do not wish to be suppressed as well, so I can only choose to remain silent. Your best friend? Ning Qi asked curiously. Ancient immortals. No, it's Dabai. The chubby baby shook his head. Dabai. Ning Qi was stunned. Seeing as you know that I'm the immortal slaying gourd, you should have heard of things related to me. If you want me to kill someone, you have to respectfully yell, Treasure, please turn around, and Dabai will fly out to take your head. The chubby baby said. A scene immediately appeared in Ning Qi's mind. He looked at the chubby baby in surprise. The immortal slaying gourd is the amalgamation of two connate numinous treasures? If the chubby baby was not lying, then the Dabai he spoke of was very likely the white light that could take the head of an immortal. It's not two connate numinous treasures. It's only when I'm with Dabai that it's considered a connate numinous treasure. So, I didn't lie to you just now. My hands have never been stained with blood, never. Although I'm a supreme grade Dao tool now, don't think that I'll help you kill people. I can't kill people. The chubby baby looked at Ning Qi warily. Ning Qi sighed in disappointment. If I find your Dabai, will I be able to kill people? The chubby baby nodded. Dabai is the best at killing people. What are you good at? Ning Qi asked. I'm good at. The chubby baby furrowed his brows in deep thought. In the end, his brows relaxed. I'm good at too many things. I can't explain them all in a short time. Dabai is called Dabai. What's your name? Ning Qi nodded thoughtfully. If there were no surprises, this chubby baby should be trash from the numinous treasure realm. Otherwise, how could he not even know what he was good at? I'm called Baby. The chubby baby smiled. Didn't I tell you just now? If you want Dabai to kill people, you have to shout, Baby, please turn around. Only then will I turn around. If I don't turn around, Dabai won't kill people. This is the law of heaven and earth. No one can change it. From now on, you're called Little Gourd. Ning Qi nodded. What? You want to change my name? Little Gourd looked at Ning Qi in disbelief. How was Dabai suppressed? Ning Qi asked. Little Gourd's attention immediately shifted from the name to Dabai. A hint of grief and indignation appeared on its face as it looked at the sky. Those patriarchs of the Tiandao family? Ning Qi asked curiously. If it weren't for them, they wouldn't have the ability to suppress Dabai. You're just a mere second-step cultivator. Even if I tell you, you won't be able to save Dabai. Stop daydreaming. Why don't we continue like this? I'll be a law-abiding supreme-grade Dao tool while you focus on your cultivation. You just focus on your cultivation. Little Gourd shook its head. You say I'm a second-step cultivator. Then what are third-step cultivators like? Is the immortal emperor a third-step cultivator? You've stayed in the Tiandao family for so many years. How many third-step cultivators did the Jiang family have? Ning Qi smiled. This Little Gourd had existed for an unimaginable amount of time. It was rare to meet such an artifact spirit. How could he face himself if he didn't ask for more information? The immortal emperor is a third-step cultivator? You've successfully made me laugh. Little Gourd rolled its eyes and paused. Ha ha! Speak properly, Ning Qi said faintly. Little Gourd seemed to have sensed Ning Qi's thoughts. A hint of fear flashed across its eyes. Fighting was really not its area of expertise. Even though it was a supreme-grade Dao tool, it didn't dare to fight Ning Qi. Furthermore, Ning Qi had an extremely terrifying aura. Chapter 2596. Fourth Step Cultivator? Ning Qi's eyes were filled with surprise. He already had some guesses about third-step cultivators, but he didn't expect the Gourd to confirm it. What shocked him was that there were fourth-step cultivators in this world. Could it be that even third-step cultivators aren't considered the end of cultivation? Are you afraid? So, don't be too high-profile. Muddling along like me is the right way. The Gourd looked at Ning Qi mockingly. The Tiandao family has a fourth-step cultivator, so the ancient immortal clan should also have one, Ning Qi muttered to himself. The ancient immortal clan was framed by the Tiandao family and fell into a trap. If the Tiandao family was the only one with a fourth-step cultivator, why would they need to frame them? They could just suppress them with force. You're quite smart. The ancient immortal clan does have a fourth-step cultivator, but it's not accurate to say that he's an ancient immortal. He's an ally of the ancient immortal clan. At least, he's not an enemy. Unfortunately, he couldn't beat another fourth-step cultivator that the Tiandao treats as its own son, so he lost. He suffered a crushing defeat. The gourd sighed. The little gourd sighed. Ning Qi caught a flash of fear in the depths of its eyes, as if it had personally experienced that battle. You know Li Er, right? Ning Qi suddenly asked. I know. I don't know. The gourd almost spilled the beans. It then looked at Ning Qi pitifully. Should I know? You're a connate numinous treasure of the ancient immortal clan. I'm sure of it since you only dared to sleep in the Jiang family. This is an ancient immortal divine ring. Don't doubt my identity. We're on the same side, and we have a common enemy, the Tiandao family. So I'll ask and you'll answer. Ning Qi raised his right hand and swept it in front of the gourd. Before it could see clearly, he put his hand behind his back and stared at the gourd. Ah, I know you're from the ancient immortal clan. I smelled your scent in the Emperor Ancestor City. Otherwise, do you think I would go into your sea of consciousness? The gourd's expression changed and it sighed. It looked like a child that had just learned to walk, but it sighed with maturity. It was a bit strange. Then why are you still hesitating? Ning Qi frowned slightly. It's not that I'm stammering, but you're just a celestial immortal. Because of the ancient immortal clan, most of the fortunes of the ancient immortal clan will fall into your hands. For example, you have an aura that terrifies me, but I can't remember what it is. What is it, but? The small gourd looked at Ning Qi with a serious expression. No matter what you do, you won't be able to win. Existences like you appear every few generations. There was once someone who reached the third step, but he was still defeated by the Tiandao clan. Although I'm asleep, I can still hear you. Their talk. You don't have to worry about these things. Aren't you a kind weapon? Fighting and killing have nothing to do with you. You just have to tell me what you know. Ning Qi rubbed the space between his eyebrows. To be honest, if the small gourd's words were true, it would have dealt a blow to his confidence. Although his current cultivation progress was fast and he was confident that he could reach the Emperor realm, he was much less confident about the third step. If even a third-step cultivator could not contend with Heavendao family, then, where is Li Er right now? Ning Qi asked again. He had learned some things from the mysterious woman in the Nether River Divine Palace, but he wanted to confirm it again. The small gourd hesitated for a while and said helplessly, He's been suppressed. Where is he suppressed? Ning Qi asked. How would I know? I'm just a gourd. The small gourd rolled its eyes. Ning Qi looked at the small gourd for a long time and saw a trace of anger in its helplessness, as if it was angry that he didn't know about this. Ning Qi believed it. It seemed like the small gourd really didn't know where Taishang Laojun was suppressed. The mysterious woman had told it. At the very least, it was at his place, where Taishang Laojun was suppressed in the Langya immortal domain. At the moment, Langya was only a Xian immortal. He hadn't become an immortal emperor yet, so there was no Langya immortal domain. Let me ask you again, where did that monkey go, monkey? Wait, even if you're the descendant of the ancient immortals, there's no reason for you to know so much about the ancient immortal clans. Who are you? The small gourd's face suddenly showed a hint of fear. It took a few steps back and looked at Ning Qi in shock. Have you heard of the name Ning Beixian? Ning Qi asked tentatively. How do you know? The small gourd stared at Ning Qi as if it had seen a ghost. Looks like you've heard of me. I forgot to introduce myself. I'm Ning Beixian. Ning Qi smiled. You're Ning Beixian? Impossible. Impossible. The small gourd was enraged when it heard that. It spun around Ning Qi like a madman and examined him with a serious look. In the end, it stopped and shook its head at Ning Qi. Impossible. The North Profound Celestial Emperor was born prettier than you, and his cultivation was much higher than yours. It must be a coincidence. I advise you not to use this name anymore. Maybe I'm his reincarnation. Ning Qi smiled. Impossible. The North Profound Celestial Emperor is dead, completely dead. It's impossible for him to be reincarnated. If he was reincarnated, why would the fourth step cultivator of the Tiandao family leave this world? He would definitely not let go. The small gourd shook its head. How do you know so much? The North Profound Celestial Emperor you mentioned was also a fourth step cultivator, right? What do you, a small gourd, know about his life and death? Ning Qi smiled. How could I not know? He planted me with his own hands. The small gourd suddenly growled. After saying that, the small gourd seemed to feel that it had said too much, so it immediately stopped talking. It looked at Ning Qi with a complicated expression, as if it was afraid with a hint of anticipation. After a moment of silence, Ning Qi stopped asking about the North Profound Celestial Emperor and repeated his question. That monkey, where did he go? The little gourd seemed to heave a sigh of relief. Its attitude suddenly changed, and it answered straightforwardly, that monkey is dead. Back then, Tathagata led the deities and Buddhas to trap the commander of the Fifth Army under the Devil Ancestors' command, as well as the billions of demon soldiers under their command. Originally, it would only take 5,000 years for them to be purified. Who would have thought that the Jiang family would launch a sneak attack and severely injure Gautama? The monkey heard the news and rushed to help, but the entire army was annihilated along with Gautama and the deities and Buddhas. Not a single ancient immortal or demon survived that battle. Chapter 2597. Don't forget that the monkey has another nickname, Victorious Fighting Buddha. In the face of foreign enemies, we, the ancient immortals, have always been very united. Tathagata and the monkey have fought for so many years and have long since developed feelings for each other. Moreover, at that time, he was the only one free. If it wasn't for this battle, perhaps the ancient immortal clan wouldn't have been defeated so quickly. The gourd sighed. At that time, the monkey was already at the peak of the third step. Among the ancient immortal clans, he had the highest chance of reaching the fourth step. If he had reached the fourth step, the situation today might have been very different. What a pity, what a pity! It is indeed a pity. Ning Qi sighed softly. It's all because the Tiandao clan is despicable and shameless. If I wasn't born with a kind heart, I would have killed 2 of the Tiandao clan's lackeys as a sacrifice to the God Emperor. The small gourd gritted its teeth and said. However, no matter how fierce he looked, he didn't have that kind of ferocity. Come on. Ning Qi smiled. Tell me about Gigu Erlang. Where did he go? The first 2 answers from the small gourd were almost the same as what the mysterious woman had said, but Ning Qi still wanted to hear it again. After all, the mysterious woman's explanation wasn't that detailed. Three-eyed? After being sent into the 10,000 realms reincarnation, I'm afraid I won't have a chance to regain my memories in this lifetime. The 10,000 realms reincarnation is a terrifying existence. Even a fourth step cultivator wouldn't be able to find a trace of the three-eyed man. The gourd said. Why? Ning Qi was stunned. Because it is rumored that its existence is even more ancient than the heavenly Tao. You should know that in the beginning, there were no immortals in this world. Only with the heavenly Tao did immortals appear. However, before there were immortals, reincarnation already existed. Even the heavenly Tao could not interfere with the reincarnation of the myriad realms, let alone those lackeys. Yes. The little gourd smiled, and its expression became somewhat relaxed. So, there is actually another way to go in this world. If one is tired, one can enter the reincarnation of the infinite realms. Then, everything in the past will become a thing of the past. I suspect that the three-eyed man voluntarily entered the reincarnation of the infinite realms. This news really made Ning Qi a little shocked. In this world, there is an existence that is higher than the heavenly Tao? In his impression, he had always thought that matters like reincarnation were managed by the underworld. But now, it seemed that perhaps the underworld and the netherworld were just a microcosm, similar to the microcosm of the reincarnation of the myriad worlds. What else do you want to ask? Ask away. As long as I know, I will tell you. I am a little tired. The gourd smiled and said. For the next 10 hours, Ning Chi and the small gourd exchanged questions and answers. He verified the scenes he had seen in the state of mind pagoda one by one. Half a body of the mighty miracle god. It was a golden dragon with only its head left, and the rest of its body had turned into bones. Neza's heart was pierced by thousands of arrows. The headless pagoda-bearing heavenly king. The details of their deaths were told by the gourd. However, there were some things that the gourd didn't know. After all, the great war of immortals and demons had affected a huge area. Almost every corner of the immortal world had become a battlefield. Ning Chi suspected that there was a demon in the central continent. It was also because of that place that the human shard became a part of the battlefield of the immortal and demon war. One last question. Did the North Mystic Divine Emperor only plant one gourd in you? Ning Chi smiled. The little gourd was stunned for a moment. It curled its lips and said, "There are 4 gourds in total. I'm one of them. I have 3 other brothers, but I don't have a good relationship with them. I don't have much contact with them. As for where they went, I have no idea." You really don't know? I don't know. Alright, go and rest. Remember that I am a kind instrument. I just want to sleep. So if there is any trouble in the future, don't take me out. I don't know how to fight. After saying this, the gourd rolled on the ground and turned back into a gourd. It then flew into Ning Chi's forehead and quietly floated in Ning Chi's mind sea. Ning Chi stood where he was and pondered for a while. Then, he moved and left the top cultivation ground. This time, he had learned too much information from the gourd that he did not know before. Perhaps this information was useless to him now, but it was hard to say in the future. Brother Ji, have a safe journey. At the gate of the Emperor Ancestor City, Mo Xie waved his hand reluctantly. Ji Fei's expression changed slightly. He glanced at Mo Xie helplessly. I am just going back to the Yixian sect, not to die. I know. Mo Xie was stunned. He didn't seem to notice the ambiguity in his words. This time, the sect is in such a hurry to call me back. It should be related to the death of Wang Yue, Immortal Emperor. You guys should leave the ancestral star as soon as possible. There was a hint of hesitation in Ji Fei's eyes. He glanced at Emperor Bai and Mo Xie, and finally at Ning Chi. Did your sect master predict that the Tiandao family will come for revenge? But with that old senior here, no matter how many immortal emperors come, it won't be a problem, right? He killed Wang Yue, Immortal Emperor, with a single sword. Mo Xie was a little surprised. I'm not too sure about the specifics. Anyway, take care. Ji Fei waved his hand and turned to leave. After Ji Fei left, Ning Chi looked at Emperor Bai and Mo Xie. The latter looked reluctant, while the former looked down at the purple jade in his hand. No one knew what he was thinking. When Ning Chi saw the purple jade, his eyes moved slightly. Brother Bai, where did you get this jade from? This is Emperor Bai's family treasure. He values it very much, even though it's just a useless item. Before Emperor Bai could speak, Mo Xie had already answered. Emperor Bai glanced at Mo Xie and said, "Who said this jade is useless? My old ancestor once said that this jade hides an opportunity. As long as you understand it, you can become an immortal lord." Looks like you believe Brother Ji's words. You want to see if there are any changes? Mo Xie laughed. Emperor Bai's face turned red. It was as if Mo Xie had seen through his thoughts, and he was a little embarrassed. Maybe this jade really hides some kind of opportunity, Ning Chi suddenly said. Emperor Bai's eyes flashed with excitement. Because Ning Chi was a disciple of the Tiandao family, his eyes were naturally different. Could Ning Chi have seen something? Brother Ning, please teach me. Emperor Bai quickly said. Actually, I just feel that it's not an ordinary item. Maybe your ancestor was right. So, you have to keep this purple jade. Don't lose it. Ning Qi smiled. Chapter 2598. Brother Ning, now that Dong Kuan has died in your hands, I have finally gotten my revenge. I once made a promise that once Dong Kuan dies, I will leave the ancestral star and will not return until I become an immortal lord. Now is the time for me to fulfill my promise, so I hope the two of you will meet again. Emo Xie suddenly said. Then, he clasped his hands at Ning Qi and Emperor Bai and left the Emperor Ancestor City, soaring into the sky. He was so reluctant when Ji Fei left just now, and now he's running away too? Bai Di was shocked. Perhaps he's crying his heart out now. After all, the path to Immortal Lord is full of obstacles. Who knows when he can return to the ancestral star after making such a promise? Ning Qi said gloatingly. There was one thing he did not say. Even if Emo Xie became an Immortal Lord, he might not be able to return to the ancestral star with the green-robed old man around. Would Emo Xie be frustrated when he found out about this? After Emo Xie left the ancestral star through the teleportation formation, he could not help but burst into tears. The immortals nearby had a strange look on their faces when they saw him like this, but after crying, Emo Xie's face showed a never-before-seen determination as he walked into the distance. Ji Fei left, Emo Xie left, leaving Bai Di and Ning Qi alone. A few days later, Bai Di suddenly came to bid farewell. According to him, something had happened in the sect, and he wanted him to go back and take a look. After sending Bai Di off, Ning Qi stayed in Emperor Ancestor City for a few more days. The grand ceremony was over, and he had gotten what he wanted. Logically speaking, there was not much use in staying in Emperor Ancestor City. But for some reason, Ning Qi still chose to stay in Emperor Ancestor City for a few more days before leaving alone. When he left, Shingong Immortal Lord and the others showed up to send him off. It was a grand occasion, but Shingong Shui was not there. Ning Qi was still a little disappointed. He wanted to hear that familiar voice again. Ning Beixian has left. Li Si and the others stood behind the crowd, looking at Ning Qi's back with a complicated expression. I thought he would use his fake identity to break the formation core here. Looks like he doesn't think that the formation core is in the Immortal Lord residence? Bai Xingxue said lightly. Perhaps his idea is the same as ours. He thinks that the master of the tomb of the god of sin has hidden the treasure in this dreamland. Otherwise, why would he spend so much effort to create such a realistic dreamland? Tai Yuan laughed. Then he must have left Emperor Ancestor City because he thought that there were no treasures here, right? If that's the case, what are we still doing here? Why not go to other places to take a look? I don't believe that the master of the divine mausoleum could create an illusion as big as the one in the ancestral star. There must be some clues. The turtle-riding old man from the southern sea suggested. The other Grand Luo expressed their agreement. In truth, they had wanted to leave a long time ago. After all, there were more than 100 Grand Luo who had entered the god's mausoleum this time, but there were only a dozen of them left in the ancestral Emperor City. The other Grand Luo were scattered all over the place, and it was possible that they had gotten ahead of them and obtained the fortunes here. Young Master Ning has already left Emperor Ancestor City. A maidservant respectfully said to Shingong Shui, who had his back to her. Shingong Shui nodded. After the maidservant left, she frowned strangely and muttered to herself, "Why do I always feel a sense of sorrow that I can't get rid of whenever I see that person? Could he be a great Tao body like me, and the great Tao power within him is affecting me?" Shui, young Master Jiang Yu and young Master Ning are both unwilling to marry. What would I do if someone from the heavenly Tao clan comes again? After sending Ning Qi away, Shingong Immortal Lord did not continue studying the Moon Immortal Emperor's corpse, and instead took some time to visit Shingong Shui. Shingong Shui-er's frown eased at once, and she glanced at Shingong Immortal Lord with a faint smile. Father, Mother has been dead for so long. You must be quite lonely by yourself. Why don't you marry over? I'll look after Emperor Ancestor City for you. What are you talking about? Shingong Immortal Lord was enraged at those words. Human words. Shingong Shui smiled. All right, I won't force you if you don't want to marry. Shingong Immortal Lord nodded helplessly, then changed the topic. When did you meet that old senior? If the Heavenly Dao clan accuses Emperor Ancestor City, I wonder if the old senior can speak up for us? Accuses? Old senior killed Moon Immortal Emperor, and young Master Ning injured Jiang Yu. What crime did Emperor Ancestor City commit? Father, you're too cautious, that's why your cultivation has stagnated. Shingong Shui sighed. Who said that father's cultivation has stagnated? Shingong Immortal Lord blushed, then shook his head. It's not that father is too cautious, but this is the way of the world. The ancient Immortal clan is very strong, isn't it? Before the great war of immortals and demons, Father once thought that the strongest in this world were the few existences of the ancient Immortal clan. Unfortunately, the Heavenly Dao clan suddenly appeared. Who knows if there are other existences behind the Heavenly Dao clan that even Father doesn't know about? Immortal Lords and Immortal Lords are like rootless duckweeds in this boundless immortal world. Even Moon Immortal Emperor died. If Father isn't careful, he might suddenly die one day. I don't know either. With that, Shingong Immortal Lord turned and left without waiting for Shingong Shui to speak. Shingong Shui was slightly stunned. She realized that Shingong Immortal Lord's back was not as straight as before 1 year later. During this year, Ning Qi had traveled through several prefectures. When he passed by the Gathering Cave Prefecture, he suddenly sensed two very familiar auras. In a simple and unadorned courtyard, 300 children were sitting and listening attentively. These children already had something called spirit qi on them, and they could be considered to have broken away from the scope of mortals. The woman lecturing had a purple jade between her eyebrows. Many children would unconsciously be attracted by it when they listened to the lesson, and then be called out by the woman to hit their palms. The pain made them grimace, and they did not dare to be distracted. A figure appeared at the entrance of the courtyard. He first glanced at the 300 children before looking at the purple jade between the woman's eyebrows. After a full 5 breaths, the woman seemed to notice this figure. She suddenly looked up with surprise in her eyes. Today's lesson ends here. Go back and comprehend on your own. After saying this, the woman immediately walked up to the figure and said with some surprise, "Big brother, how did you find us?" Ning Qi retracted his gaze from the purple jade and smiled at Ing Zhenxuan. "I was passing by and saw that you and Li Xian were here, so I came to take a look." After a pause, he looked at the group of curious children. "What's up with these 300 children?" Chapter 2599. You're here. Li Xian walked out of the house and smiled at Ning Qi. Without waiting for Ning Qi to speak, she looked at the 300 curious children. "Hurry up and cultivate. What are you looking at?" "Yes, great master." A look of fear appeared on the faces of the children, and they scattered in all directions. "Great master. Is Zhenxuan our little master?" Ning Qi said with a faint smile. Ing Zhenxuan nodded helplessly. She had always felt that this was ridiculous. Teaching illusions to cultivate? She would probably be laughed at if word got out, "Your idea?" Ning Qi looked at Li Xian. Li Xian nodded. "Good idea." Ning Qi smiled. Ing Zhenxuan froze and her expression turned strange. Li Xian was surprised, then a hint of joy appeared in her eyes. "You also think that my guess is correct?" "Not that I think, but I'm sure that your guess is correct. Ning Qi smiled. Big brother, big sister Li Xian, what are you talking about? Why can't I understand? Ing Zhenxuan asked with a strange expression. You think this is an illusion? Ning Qi smiled. It's an illusion. Could it be? Ing Zhenxuan froze for a moment. Then, she thought of Li Xian's actions over the past few days, as well as her conversation with Ning Qi. Suddenly, a terrifying thought came to her mind. This thought made Ing Zhenxuan tremble uncontrollably. Looks like you've figured it out. That's right, this isn't an illusion. It's the ancestral planet of the immortal world. However, it's very different from our era. Ning Qi smiled. How is this possible? How can there be such a method in this world? Could it be that the 9 bronze chairs can send us back to the past? Ing Zhenxuan muttered to herself. She suddenly understood why Li Xian would go around searching for these talented children and even teach them how to cultivate. If this wasn't an illusion, as long as a few of these children could survive to the future, they would all be extremely terrifying existences. Big brother, does that mean we can't go back? Ing Zhenxuan raised her head and looked at Ning Qi blankly. How long have we been here? Ning Qi smiled. 1 year and a half. Li Xian said. In another 8 years, we will leave this place and return to the divine tomb. Ning Qi laughed. Li Xian looked at Ning Qi strangely. She was curious. How did Ning Qi know about this? However, based on her understanding of Ning Qi would not have made such an assertion unless he was absolutely certain. Really? Ing Zhenxuan was pleasantly surprised. Logically, she thought that this era was a great one. There were 2 immortal emperors and 9 immortal lords on the ancestral star. Even Tai true immortals and profound immortals were common, unlike the rare ones in the future. Therefore, it was very beneficial to cultivation. However, there were too many things she couldn't let go of in the future. Li Xian wasn't confident that she could live that long. If she didn't return, she might never see her father, her grandfather, and her juniors from the moon-lacking peak again. In the following days, Li Xian and Ing Zhenxuan taught the children cultivation as usual. Ning Qi, on the other hand, went to the various markets and became a businessman. In this era, all cultivation resources were much more abundant than in the future. Even pill formulas were different. They were treasured by some sections. No one dared to covet them, even if it meant the destruction of the entire sect. Ning Qi spent a few years relying on the top cultivation training ground and his alchemy skills. The chicken laid the egg, and the egg laid the chicken. After clearing out all the useless things in the space bag, he managed to exchange for several pill formulas. At least, he wouldn't have to worry about pill formulas in the future. 8 years later. Over the past 8 years, the immortals who had been transported from the tomb of the god of sin to this place had all obtained a lot of benefits. However, they were always worried about whether these benefits were also a kind of illusion. If they left this illusion, would these so-called benefits disappear? Would they disappear? Because of this, many people swallowed all the medicinal pills they obtained and worked hard to improve their cultivation. For example, if they could not swallow the magic treasures, they would refine them and throw them into the universe ring or hide them in the sea of consciousness. They would never take them out. This was the mentality of an ostrich. Even immortals were no exception. There were also many people who chose to join the major sections. These sects all had Tai true immortals. This era was different from the future. Although it had declined a lot compared to its heyday, it was still a flourishing era. After entering these sects, the cultivation methods they could learn were all extinct in the world. The kind that was extinct in the world. As for whether these cultivation methods were real or not, they didn't care. Instead, they chose to memorize all the cultivation methods. After leaving the dreamland, they would carefully study them. Changzhou Beast Taming Abode. Scripture Pavilion. Senior Brother Gui is so diligent. Ever since he entered the inner sect, He has been doing tasks and reading books in the scripture pavilion. Unfortunately, he is not talented enough. So far, he hasn't succeeded in learning any cultivation method. Sigh. I know, right? Let's go. We need to learn from senior brother Gue. The few figures shook their heads and walked out of the scripture pavilion. In the depths of the scripture pavilion, the South Sea tortoise-riding old man was reading a book carefully like a treasure, memorizing all the essentials in it. He was prepared to try it out after leaving the divine tomb. He knew that his cultivation talent was not high, so he worked hard on beast taming. Then, he unexpectedly learned that the long-destroyed monster taming camp was now in its heyday on the ancestral star. Through various means, he became an inner sect disciple of the monster taming camp. There's such a method, such a method. If all this is real, my combat strength will definitely improve a lot after leaving the divine tomb. Seeing the excitement, the South Sea tortoise-riding old man couldn't help but smile. Suddenly, a unique aura shrouded the entire ancestral star. All the immortals sensed it and stopped what they were doing, walked out of their doors, and looked up to see 7 figures that were thousands of feet tall standing in the sky, looking down at the entire ancestral star with cold eyes. All 7 of them are immortal emperors? Has the Tiandao clan come to avenge immortal Emperor Wang Yue? The South Sea tortoise-riding old man inhaled sharply. The immortals everywhere stared at the 7 figures in shock, their hearts pounding. The Tiandao clan's strength was truly profound to be able to send out 7 immortal emperors at once. But before they could recover from their shock, a sword light flashed across the sky, and the 7 bodies suddenly let out an extremely terrified scream. They turned around and wanted to flee, but in the next moment their bodies were peeled off piece by piece, and they were actually chopped into meat paste by the sword. Chapter 2600. The 7 immortal emperors' deaths were even more tragic than immortal Emperor Wang Yue's. Not even their corpses were left intact, and their flesh and blood were reduced to ashes before they could even touch the ground. Disbelief rose in the hearts of all the immortals who saw this. Could it be that the green-robed elder on the ancestral planet was a powerhouse who far surpassed the immortal emperor realm? For example, the ancient immortal leaders who were killed in the past? He's still an immortal emperor and hasn't reached the 3rd step. In the void, several pairs of eyes watched the scene calmly, as if they were already prepared for the death of the 7 immortal emperors. That's right. But why use the lives of 7 disciples to test him? The owner of another pair of eyes said flatly. It's just 7 disciples. It's nothing to our Jiang clan, said Jiang Chen. Pass down the order and inform the other families that they are not to set foot on the ancestral planet in the future and just wait patiently for that person's return. Very well. Who sent 1 more disciple on the ancestral planet? It wasn't me. It wasn't me either. Several pairs of surprised eyes looked at each other and then gradually disappeared into the void. Although any one of them could easily kill the green-robed elder, they did not dare to leave the Tiandao family for some reason. A few days had passed since the deaths of the 7 immortal emperors, but the Tiandao family did not make any further moves, as if they were frightened by the green-robed elder. That sword strike had inexplicably terrified the immortals on the ancestral planet, and also because of the Tiandao family's attitude. His attitude caused them to feel a deep sense of reverence towards the green-robed elder. In an ordinary mountain village on the ancestral planet, the green-robed elder stood at the entrance of the village and calmly looked up at the starry sky. After the eyes disappeared, the corners of his mouth curled into a mocking smile. A child who appeared to be 7 or 8 years old walked up to the elder and asked respectfully and curiously, "Master, rumor has it that the Tiandao family has a 3rd-step cultivator. You killed 8 of their immortal emperors, but why didn't they dare to attack?" The green-robed old man smiled and rubbed the child's head. because they are as timid as mice. They only dare to hide in the shadows and plot against others. After that person left, they became even more timid. They don't even dare to take a step out of the family. They are afraid that your Grandmaster is still alive. Grandmaster is so strong. The child's eyes shone with admiration. When the green-robed old man saw this, he seemed to think of his past self, and a smile appeared on his face. But Grandmaster, isn't he already dead? The child hesitated for a moment. The green-robed old man said with a smile, "Yu Qing, at your Grandmaster's level, even if he's dead, his prestige is still there. Therefore, they don't even dare to step out of the house. Moreover, your Grandmaster likes to surprise people. Even I'm not sure whether he's dead or not, so how can they be sure?" The child suddenly understood. The Tiandao family's lackeys. As long as the third step cultivators don't appear, the remaining celestial emperors won't be a match for Master's sword. With you in the ancestral star, the Tiandao family's lackeys won't dare to come again, right? The green-robed old man smiled. Yes, I hope I can live longer. Master. I've already thought of a way to break the chess game yesterday. Do you want to go back with me and play again? The child said shyly. Let's go. The green-robed old man held the child's hand and walked into the village. It was mealtime, and the villagers greeted the green-robed old man and the child enthusiastically. The news of 7 celestial emperors being killed with one sword had affected the entire ancestral star. Even Li Xian, who didn't like to talk much, chatted enthusiastically with Ing Zhenxuan. At the same time, she kept asking Ningqi about the old man's identity because they knew that when immortal Emperor Wang Yue was killed, Ningqi was in the imperial capital, in the ancestral city. I don't know no matter how much you ask. Ningqi waved his hand helplessly. Seeing that the two girls were about to ask, he looked at the sky and suddenly said, "How long has it been since we came here? If today passes, it will be exactly 10 years. Li Xian said. "Big brother, are we going back?" Ing Zhenxuan was pleasantly surprised. Only the mystic sword sect's lack of Moon Peak was her home, so although it was easy to stay here for 10 years, it wasn't all that fun. Ning Qi's lips curled up as he saw that he had successfully changed the topic. "Yes, we're going back." "Then, is that green-robed old man the one we saw outside Bluestone Town?" Li Xian asked again. "If it really is that old senior, then his age is a little scary, right?" Ing Zhenxuan was amazed. She had never seen Bai Di, Mo Xie, or Lang Ye, but she had heard of the 9 immortal monarchs in the ancestral star. It was just that she didn't recognize any of them, not even their names. "It could be," Ning Qi said helplessly. "It could be?" Li Xian's eyes showed a trace of doubt. This answer was too uncertain. "Both of them are old men, who can remember?" Ning Qi smiled and shook his head. His words were not fake. When he carefully recalled the appearance of the green-robed old man, Ning Qi found that he could not remember what he looked like at all. The next time the old man appeared, he could simply change his clothes and Ning Qi would not be able to recognize him. It wasn't that Ning Qi's memory was wrong. It was most likely the green-robed old man's own doing. Li Xian and Ing Zhenxuan put it aside when they saw that they couldn't get more information about the green-robed old man from Ning Qi. They needed the last few hours to settle the group of disciples. 10 years had passed, and the youngest of the urchins was now 13 or 14 years old. They had matured a long time ago, and when they saw the great master and little master chasing them away, they felt upset. Among the group, there was a man and a woman with the highest cultivation talent. Under the guidance of Li Xian, the number 1 on the Heaven Immortal board, their cultivation had improved by leaps and bounds. In less than 10 years, they had already reached the Golden Core realm. Although this level of cultivation was insignificant on the ancestral star, it was not impossible for them to achieve great things in the future. Coincidentally, the man and the woman were siblings. The man was called Bei Shao, and the woman was called Bei Meng. Great master, little master, great uncle, we will take our leave. Bei Shao and Bei Meng cupped their fists and left reluctantly. After the children were dismissed, Li Xian smiled at Ning Qi and Ing Zhenxuan. Bei Shao, Bei Meng, when you were immortal, the two little ones who planned to take care of you had the same name. Do you think it's a coincidence? I don't know. Ning Qi shook his head. Chapter 2601. It doesn't make sense, Ning Qi muttered in a low voice. It did not make sense. Since he had returned to the tomb of the god of sin, why was Li Si and the others nowhere to be seen? There was no reason for them to all be dead, right? Ning Qi stood there quietly. After about 10 minutes, there was still no movement in the hall. Apart from the sound of his breathing, there was only dead silence. Am I the only one who came back? They all stayed there? Ning Qi's eyes showed a trace of surprise. He immediately asked the silver dragon in his mind. This time, the silver dragon seemed to be asleep and did not move at all. Ning Qi thought of another possibility. Perhaps there were other mysterious arrangements in the tomb of the god of sin other than the reincarnation array. There was a certain possibility that Li Si and the others had been teleported to another place. He just didn't know if Li Xian and Ing Zhenxuan had returned to the tomb of the god of sin. Where is this? No, it's so strange. Why does this place give me such a strange feeling? Are we not in the immortal realm? A voice sounded from behind Ning Qi. Ning Qi turned around and saw that the little gourd had flown out of his mind. It had transformed into a human form and was looking around with a trace of surprise on its face. Not in the immortal realm? Ning Qi frowned. The immortal slaying gourd was a connate spirit treasure. It had existed for an unimaginably long time. Since it had this feeling, there might really be something wrong. If we're not in the immortal realm, where are we? Ning Qi asked. I don't know. It's so strange. I'm so scared. I'm going to sleep now. Don't wake me up. The little gourd shook its head and turned back into a gourd like a timid mouse. It disappeared between Ning Qi's eyebrows as if it had come out this time to express its fear and warn Ning Qi not to wake it up. Ning Qi sighed softly. He had thought that obtaining the immortal slaying gourd would greatly increase his combat strength. But the current situation made him a little disappointed. Before he found a buy, the little gourd would probably only be useful for chatting and blocking attacks for him. Naturally, Ning Qi would not forget his current identity just because of the gourd's attitude. Although it was not a connate spiritual treasure, it was a supreme-grade Dao artifact after all. At the very least, its skin was thicker. Even if it could not hit anyone, it could at least help Ning Qi take a few hits, right? Next, Ning Qi waited in place for a few more days. After confirming that it was unlikely that anyone else would appear, he chose to return the way he came. As for the 9 bronze chairs, Ning Qi didn't even touch them. Who knew if they would send him to another era? If this was the era of the great war of immortals and demons, Ning Qi he felt that with his cultivation, the chances of him surviving would be extremely low. The dark corridor was quiet. Only the sound of Ning Qi's footsteps could be heard. The flames of the great path on both sides had been extinguished for some reason. The last time Ning Qi had appeared in the corridor, it had taken him more than a month to reach the bronze gate. This time, it only took him half a day to see a glimmer of light in front of him. At the same time, an improbable aura surged toward him, madly rushing into his body, and his body also felt like it was about to explode. His body, like a traveler who had been thirsty in the desert for several days, was constantly absorbing these auras. Ning Qi was slightly startled, and then slowly walked toward the light. When he completely left the corridor, he could not help but gasp. At this moment, he was not surrounded by immortal qi, but endless devil qi. This was the devil tribe's continent. Ning Qi turned around abruptly, only to find that the corridor had disappeared without a trace. In its place was a plain, and there were a few monsters passing by. They were looking at Ning-Chi with hungry and thirsty eyes as they walked towards Ning-Chi step by step. Ning-Chi's eyes flickered slightly, and he immediately transformed into his devil body form. Monstrous devil flames soared into the sky, scaring those demonic creatures who did not have spiritual intelligence to run away, peeing as they ran. The tomb of the god of sin disappeared, as if it had never appeared. Is this the means of the master of the tomb of the god of sin, or? A few more question marks appeared on Ning-Chi's head. He didn't understand why he would appear in this place. Suddenly, Ning-Chi seemed to have thought of something. His spiritual will moved. Immediately after, he discovered that the Fangtsuan mountain, which he had completely lost contact with due to the distance, was now re-established. It was just like when he first came to the immortal prison. This wouldn't be the immortal prison, would it? Ning-Chi looked up at the sky and murmured to himself. It didn't make sense. It was as if there was an invisible hand controlling everything. The tomb of the god of sin was clearly on the ancestral star. Why would it suddenly bring him here? Ning-Chi knew how far the ancestral star was from this place. It was impossible for a divine tomb to appear here. Even an immortal lord might not be able to make a tomb of the god of sin appear here and then vanish. With a thought, a figure that had not appeared for a long time appeared in front of Ning-Chi. Ning-Chi looked at the stunned third prince and said with a smile, "Student Ming-san, congratulations on returning home." Third Prince Ming looked at Ning-Chi in astonishment, then gasped, looked around, and said to Ning-Chi in disbelief, "We're back." Ning-Chi nodded with a smile. Third Prince Ming took a deep breath. He had been kept in the creation domain by Ning-Chi all these years and had lost track of time. However, because Ning-Chi had once let Ing Zhenxuan stay in the creation domain, he knew that Ning-Chi had already returned to the immortal world. What shocked the third prince the most was that he had returned to the demon continent. Then, the third Prince Ming was shocked by Ning-Chi's demonic aura. He pointed at Ning-Chi and said, You what? Speak properly." Ning-Chi smiled. "Your cultivation, this is the Earth Demon stage?" "No, the Earth Demon stage is not this terrifying." Third Prince Ming stammered. He was a perfect perfection human demon. Standing in front of a perfect perfection heavenly demon, he naturally felt his heart pounding. "There's no need to guess. Perfect perfection heavenly demon." Ning-Chi grinned. The third Ming prince knelt on the ground with a thud, his entire body trembling. He hadn't been this afraid even when Ning-Chi had suppressed him. Heavenly demons were taboo existences in the immortal prison. Ning-Chi helped the third prince up. "Don't be so polite. I just brought you back to celebrate the new year since it's almost the end of the year." "The immortal prison doesn't celebrate the new year," Third Prince Ming muttered in his heart. However, he was still very happy to be back home. There was no mistaking this familiar smell. This was his home. Chapter 2602. Ning-Chi's sense of direction had always been poor, and the third Ming prince wasn't familiar with Yanshan City either. Therefore, the two of them searched for a long time and asked a few demons to find the right direction. Looking at the familiar city gate, Ning-Chi sighed softly. The third Ming prince followed behind Ning-Chi, occasionally looking at Ning-Chi with a trace of fear in his eyes. After all, Ning-Chi was a heavenly demon at the perfection stage. However, he was a little curious as to why Ning-Chi sighed. The third Ming prince naturally didn't know that Ning-Chi sighed because of the conflict between the ancient immortal clan and the demon race. It could be said that the demon race also contributed a lot to the Tiandao clan's plot to kill the ancient immortal clan. Now, he was both an immortal and a demon. He was both an immortal and a demon. I wonder how much time has passed here. Ning Qi smiled. The third Ming prince opened his mouth. He didn't know if Ning Qi was talking to himself or asking him. If Ning Qi was asking him, he wouldn't know either. Ning Qi had spent more than 100 years on the homeworld, and a few hundred years on his way to the immortal realm. Adding up all these years and the fact that the flow of time between the two places might be different, Ning Qi would never have guessed without asking someone he was familiar with how long it had been since he left the immortal realm. How many years had passed since he left the immortal world? I wonder if Demon King Pain of Zun Mountain can escape this time. In the past, demons that angered the Lucifer tribe didn't have a good ending. I heard that Pain's fourth disciple has a close relationship with the Lucifer tribe. Why did the Lucifer tribe send 2 Earth Demon Realm seniors to suppress Lord Pain? Lord Pain's fourth disciple has been missing for more than 1,000 years. Rumor has it that he died long ago. Naturally, the relationship between the two has faded. This time, the 2 Earth Devil Stage seniors who came to our Yanshan city are Davis and Lu Dongha. Both of them are well-known figures. According to legend, rumor has it that they have a grudge with the Demon King's mansion. Perhaps Lord Pain's fourth disciple provoked too many enemies during the Heaven's Chosen tournament. I've heard of this, but it's a pity that I didn't come to the Lucifer tribe to watch the Heaven's Chosen tournament. The few devils chatted as they walked past Ning Qi and Yi Zichen. The third Ming prince looked at Ning Qi strangely. If he remembered correctly, Zun Mountain Demon King Pain was Ning Qi's master here. He was the fourth disciple mentioned by those demons. Davis and Lu Dongha, Ning Qi frowned slightly. He still remembered these 2 people. The former was an elder of the Lucifer tribe, and his direct disciple, Yu Ji, had died in his hands. In addition, during the Demon Race Genius battle, Ning Qi had also killed several of his disciples. This person hated him to the bone, and Lu Dongha was the same. It was also at that time that Ning Qi saw Feng Jiuxian's remnant soul in the Underworld Emperor's cave and learned that his mother, Prince Muting, was brought to the land of the immortals by a disciple of the Jiang family. If there was no accident, that disciple of the Jiang family was Jiang Yu. Logically speaking, even if he left this place for more than 1,000 years, with Aunt Jian and the Lucifer tribe, Davis and Lu Dongha wouldn't dare to come to Yanshan City to make things difficult for his master even if they had 10 gut. There was probably only one reason why the 2 of them came here today. Something happened to Aunt Jian? A trace of solemnity flashed in Ning Qi's eyes. He moved and appeared in the sky above the Demon King's residence with the third Ming prince. The demons who surrounded the Demon King's residence below didn't seem to notice the 2 figures in the sky. As for the third Ming prince, he looked at Ning Qi in shock, thinking that the means of the heavenly demon were really terrifying. Even he didn't have time to react before he was brought here from the city gate by Ning Qi. Immediately after, the third Ming prince looked at the Demon King's residence curiously. At this moment, 3 existences emitting the aura of the Earth Demon were facing each other from afar. Davis didn't change much, but Lu Dongha's aura seemed to be much stronger. Behind the 2 of them stood more than 30 existences in the full circle of the human devil realm. If the demons on the periphery were included, the number of demons they brought this time was more than 500. As for Pain's side, their aura was slightly weaker. Beside him stood Uriel, Lan Ruo, and the other veterans of the Venerable Mountain Army. Wanli and Zhu Feng were nowhere to be seen, and Spider Pattern was not present either. Other than Pain, who was in the Earth Demon realm, the others were all in the mid to the full circle of the Human Devil realm. As for the other clans of Yen Mountain City, such as the North Moon Clan, the Yang Clan, etc., at this moment, under the lead of their clan leaders, they stood 300 meters away from the Demon King's residence. Their expressions were either worried, indifferent, or mocking. They all had different attitude. Pain, seeing that we've known each other for so many years, come back to the Lucifer tribe with us, and we'll avoid bloodshed today. How about it? After Lu Donghe looked at Pain up and down, he let out a chuckle. His laughter was full of contempt. Davis didn't speak, but when he looked at Pain, there was a trace of undisguised killing intent. He still remembered how Pain's fourth disciple had tortured and killed several of his direct disciples. Such enmity was absolutely irreconcilable. Now that he had the opportunity to target Pain, how could he not do so? Would he let him go? As long as Pain became timid, he would join hands with Lu Donghe and kill him on the spot to prevent any undue troubles. What a joke! I wonder how I've offended the Lucifer tribe that they want you two old dogs to come and catch me? Pain smiled. Standing beside him, Uriel's expression was somewhat solemn. However, in the current situation, his words had no weight. He was already prepared to fight to the death. Lan Ruo and the other old men who came from the venerated mountain army had solemn expressions. There was a hint of killing intent in their eyes. As long as there was any disagreement, they would fight to the death for Pain today. Spider Pattern is your third disciple, right? She stole the sacred relic of the tribe, and you say it has nothing to do with you? Davis said indifferently. That's right. Your two disciples have renounced the dark and entered the light. They have already told us everything you've done in private. They said it was you who instructed Spider Pattern to steal the sacred relic of the Lucifer tribe. Lu Donghe said with some schadenfreude. Oh, Wanli and Zhufeng, so they went to the Lucifer tribe. Pain was startled, and the corner of his mouth rose. These two traitorous ingrates dare to deceive their master and ancestors to slander you? There was a hint of anger in Uriel's eyes. Lan Ruo and the others were also furious. The morale of the Demon King's mansion dropped a lot because of Lu Donghe's words. Chapter 2603. All the big clans in Yen Mountain City weren't optimistic about the Demon King's mansion. Although the name of Zun Mountain Demon King Pain was very famous here, compared to a top-notch tribe like the Lucifer tribe, it was worlds apart. After all, the Lucifer tribe had a heavenly devil expert. Right now, there were more than 10 of them. With Davis and Lu Donghe here today, it was more than enough to bathe the Devil King's residence in blood. Some of the clans that had good relations with the Devil King's mansion had already begun to worry. To them, if the Devil King's mansion were to fall, it was very likely that an Earth Devil expert would appear out of nowhere to replace Pain. At that time, the power and benefits in their hands would definitely be taken back, and they might even be chased out. It was even possible in Yen Shan City. However, there were quite a few clans like the Yang family that secretly hated the Demon King's estate. They were currently watching the show with a sense of schadenfreude. Back then, the patriarch of the Yang family, Yang Mo, had been forcefully beaten to death by Ning Qi. Ning Qi was also Pain's fourth disciple. They did not show anything on the surface, acting like they were subservient, but they obviously hated the Demon King's estate. Lu Donghe looked at Pain with a faint smile. Wanli and Zhufeng are indeed in the Lucifer tribe. Now, the evidence is irrefutable. The matter of you letting your third disciple, Spiderweb, steal the sacred relic of the Lucifer tribe has already spread like wildfire. The entire Lucifer tribe wants to tear you into pieces. Elder Davis is here to give you a way out. Surrender yourself, and I won't kill your subordinate. Disarm and not kill? What a joke. Uriel and the others had already seen through the situation before them. Today's situation was a fight to the death. Disarming and not killing could only deceive 3-year-olds. Sir, the old bones of the revered mountain army have not loosened up for a very, very long time. Today, let us kill to our heart's content. Lan Ruo suddenly laughed maniacally. His voice almost resounded throughout the entire Yen Mountain City. Sir, let us kill to our heart's content. The rest of the venerable mountain army's elders roared in unison. These venerable mountain army soldiers had followed Pain to conquer everywhere and forcibly conquered Yen Mountain City. The blood on their hands could almost wash a lake red. Even in the face of certain death, they still had a fearless fighting spirit, refusing a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit. Davis sneered and lightly waved his hand, signaling his subordinates who were surrounding the entire Demon King's mansion to enter the courtyard. The expressions of Lan Ruo and the others immediately turned solemn. They were prepared to take action at any time. However, after 3 breaths of time, there was no movement outside at all. Davis frowned slightly. Could it be that his subordinates couldn't understand his gestures? Still not coming in? Lu Donghe bellowed. In addition to Davis's subordinates, he also brought several personal disciples and disciples. His and Davis's target was Pain, and the rest were naturally dealt with by their subordinates. It was silent outside. No one replied to Lu Donghe. The expressions of the dozens of perfected demon humans standing behind the 2 of them changed slightly. They seemed to have sensed something amiss. Pain also seemed to feel that something was wrong. Davis and Lu Donghe looked at each other. Just as they were about to take the next step, the door creaked open slowly, and 2 figures entered one after another. When everyone saw the leader of the group, the expressions of 80% of the demons changed slightly, and a hint of astonishment appeared in their eyes. "It's him." Davis's eyes were filled with hatred. He stared at Ning Qi with gritted teeth. Even if Ning Qi had been reduced to ashes, he would still recognize him. However, Lu Donghe thought of his disciples and grand disciples who had already lost all signs of life from Ning Qi's appearance, and he gradually became stern. Pain's expression, which had basically remained the same for the past 10 millennia, changed slightly when he saw Ning Qi. Beside him, Roriel became excited after recovering from his daze. Lan Ruo and the others struggled to believe that they would see Ning Qi again after 1,000 years. The Beixian, who ranked first in the battle of prodigies of the demon race over 1,000 years ago? The group of peak human demons behind Davis and Lu Donghe revealed a trace of bewilderment on their faces. They looked at Ning Qi with curiosity, killing intent, and fear in their eyes. At the same time, the clans outside all looked at one another in some shock. "One of the 2 people who just entered seems familiar. Do you remember him?" At this moment, the patriarch of the North Moon clan, North Moon Chongshu, said with a rather mixed expression. "He seems to be Sir Pain's 4th disciple." Beixian hiss, "That kid has actually appeared again? But even if he's here, it won't make a difference in the current situation. When he first went missing, he was only an early or mid-demon human. 1,000 years have passed, and he's still only a demon human." The current patriarch of the Yang family said coldly. Ning Qi's appearance was truly shocking, but after the shock, they did not believe Ning Qi could control the situation today. Most of them felt that Ning Qi had gone to his death. After all, the Demon King's estate currently had 2 earth demons sent by the Lucifer tribe. "Master, Senior Uncle, Lan Ruo, long time no see, everyone." Ning Qi clasped his hands at Pain and the others with a smile. Pain looked at Ning Qi, but he discovered he could no longer see through his disciple's cultivation. A sliver of thought appeared in his eyes, and he nodded with a smile. "Junior nephew Beixian, you're not dead? Ha! As long as you're not dead." Roriel was rather excited. Even his beard curled up. The others immediately thought of the missing spider line, as well as Wan Li and Zhu Feng, who had betrayed the Demon King's estate. Now that they saw the 4th disciple of Lord Pain appear at this time, they had very complicated feelings. They did not expect that the one who planned to fight alongside them in this desperate situation was only Lord Pain. The last disciple he had accepted. Haha, then he still has to die today. Davis's voice sounded. He had already forgotten about the silent demons outside. At this moment, there was only Ning Qi in his eyes. After hearing Davis's words, 3rd Ming Prince looked at him with some pity. This scene was coincidentally captured by Lu Donghe, who had a look of bewilderment on his face. His heart skipped a beat, and a trace of a bad premonition arose in his heart. Then, an incomparably majestic and monstrous demonic flame was emitted from Ning Qi's body. It was like a mountain pressing down on Lu Donghe, Davis, and the others. Plop, plop. First, the great perfection human demons that the two had brought along could not withstand this terrifying pressure, and they knelt on the ground in shock. Then, Davis and Lu Donghe knelt together, and their knees even sank into the ground. They looked at each other in horror, and then at Ning Qi in disbelief. When I speak, I don't like people interrupting. Chapter 2604. Skyfiend? Everyone looked at Davis's face that was twisted with fear, and then heard him spit out these two words that were incomparably heavy for the immortal prison. Everyone's expressions changed drastically, including Pain, Ruriel, and the others. Impossible, you've been missing for 1,000 years. Back then, you were just a human demon. How could you? Lu Donghe knelt on the ground and looked at Ning Qi in disbelief. Today's events had almost caused his worldview to collapse. To him, a mere 1,000 years was equivalent to 10 days for mortals, or even shorter. However, how could a human devil transform into a heavenly devil in such a short period of time? The truth was right before his eyes. He was suppressed by Ning Qi's terrifying aura and couldn't move. But Lu Donghe didn't want to believe what he was seeing. The demons brought by Lu Donghe and Davis all looked at Ning Qi in horror. Their bodies began to tremble uncontrollably. Skyfiend? Pain looked at Ning Qi with an inquiring gaze. Ning Qi nodded slightly. After the shock, Ruriel and the others looked at each other. Then the atmosphere in the courtyard became somewhat strange. Davis didn't dare to make a sound. The demons of Pain's Demon King's residence didn't dare to make a sound either. Both sides looked at Ning Qi blankly, but their moods were very different. Disciple nephew Beixian? Is this true? You've become a Skyfiend? Under everyone's shocked gazes, Ruriel walked up to Ning Qi and reached out to pinch Ning Qi's shoulders, arms, and even thighs, as if confirming that this was really the disciple nephew he hadn't seen for 1,000 years. Lan Ruo and the others swallowed, sincerely admiring Ruriel's boldness. Uncle Master, don't pinch me. It's me. Ning Qi smiled bitterly. Then, Ruriel suddenly hugged Ning Qi fiercely. Then he took 2 steps back and said excitedly, "It's good that you're back. Where have you been all these years?" Pain asked after a moment of silence. "That place is a little far." Ning Qi smiled. Pain's lips curled into a faint smile and he nodded. "Since it's so far, it can't be explained in a short time. Let's settle the matter at hand first." As soon as he finished speaking, his gaze descended onto Davis and Lu Donghe, revealing a trace of ridicule. Davis and Lu Donghe didn't care much about Pain's gaze. The fear in their hearts was like a flood that couldn't be stopped. In addition to fear, there were all kinds of complex emotions surging in their hearts. Senior sister Spider Pattern, she's missing? Ning Qi glanced at Davis and asked Pain. Pain nodded, and a hint of sternness appeared on his face. "It's not just her. The Holy Maiden has gone missing too, as well as the little girl from the North Moon Clan." That little girl from the North Moon Clan? Various scenes immediately appeared in Ning Qi's mind. Pain was referring to North Moon Lingqiu, who had taken a liking to him in the past and later became Auntie Jian's maidservant. "How long has he been missing?" Ning Qi said. 10 years. Pain said. Ning Qi nodded. Originally, he planned to see if there were any clues about the demon ancestor's heart when he came to the immortal prison this time. After all, this was his mission to become a golden immortal. Apart from that, he also wanted to see Auntie Jian. He never thought Auntie Jian had gone missing 10 years ago, along with Spider Pattern and North Moon Lingqiu. If he wanted to know what had happened to them, he had to pay a visit to the Lucifer tribe. To Ning-Chi, who came to the immortal prison last time, the Lucifer tribe was no different from a tiger's den. After all, there was a heavenly demon that Ning-Chi had never seen before. However, to the current Ning-Chi, the Lucifer tribe was already nothing. As long as he wanted to, he could annihilate it with a flick of his finger. The story of stealing the sacred artifact was also framed by them, right? Ning-Chi glanced at Davis and Lu Donghe. Their complexions were deathly pale. Because Ning-Chi's aura didn't seem to affect Pain and the others. It was only directed at them. Therefore, the pressure they were under was enormous. That's right. Spider-1 and the others have been missing for 10 years. These two people only came to Yen Mountain City today, and told me that Spider-1 stole the sacred artifact of the Lucifer tribe. Other than framing them, what else could it be? However, it might also be related to your two useless senior brothers. Without their testimony, these two people would not have such gut. After all, I also have some friends in the Lucifer tribe. Pain said faintly. Marshal Nephew Beixian, this time, I will go with you to the Lucifer tribe and meet those two traitors. I want to see if their conscience has been eaten by dogs. Rurier said angrily. Lan Ruo and the others were also very angry. Forget about Davis and Lu Donghe targeting the Demon King's mansion. Wan Li and Zhu Feng, as the young masters of the Demon King's mansion, had actually defected to the Lucifer tribe. Those guys who wanted to annihilate the Demon King's mansion was unforgivable. We definitely have to go to the Lucifer tribe. Then, these two people, how do Master and Marshal Uncle plan to deal with them? Ning-Chi said with a faint smile. Davis and Lu Donghe had been immersed in fear, watching Ning-Chi talking to Pain and the others. When they heard Ning-Chi's words, their hearts finally reacted. Misunderstanding. There may be a little misunderstanding in this matter. As long as we solve it, it will be fine. Since the sacred object was not stolen by Spider Stripe, it naturally has nothing to do with the Demon King's mansion. Why don't we go back to the Lucifer tribe and find out the truth of this matter? Lu Donghe squeezed out a smile and said. Davis did not speak. Although he also wanted to beg for mercy, he couldn't change his mind for the time being. Misunderstanding? What did you do just now? Marshal Nephew Beixian, have you dealt with those demon bastards outside? Rurier looked at the two mockingly, then asked Ning-Chi. Well, it's settled. Ning-Chi nodded with a smile. Then let's get rid of these two people as well. Rurier said. No, don't kill me. I am the elder of the Lucifer tribe. I also have the old ancestor of the heavenly devil stage behind me. If you kill me today, he will definitely avenge me. Davis finally begged for mercy. There was no other way. His life was more important now. As for his face, it didn't matter anymore. When Lu Donghe heard this, he nodded quickly. Yes, the Lucifer tribe also has the old ancestor of the heavenly devil stage. Even if you are also a heavenly devil, I'm afraid your power is not as deep as his. There was a hint of hesitation on Rurier's face. What the two said was right. Although Ning-Chi had also advanced to the heavenly devil stage at this moment, his cultivation was certainly not as strong as the existence of the heavenly devil stage many years ago. Killing these two people was likely to trigger a war between the heavenly devils. When the two saw the hesitation on the faces of Rurier and the others, they were relieved. But then they saw Ning-Chi said with a faint smile, "The existence of the heavenly devil. I have killed many of them. Your Lucifer tribe won't make a difference." Chapter 2605. Don't you dare lie. Davis came back to his senses. Although he was afraid, he now knew that some things should be said. After all, it was related to his life. How many celestial devil ancestors are there in this world? You actually said that you killed countless of them. You can lie to us, but can you lie to yourself? If you want to kill me today, do it. But you have to think about your master, your martial uncle, and these fellows from the Demon King's mansion. Can they escape the pursuit of the Lucifer tribe? Davis said with a sinister face. Lan Ruo and the others looked at each other and saw the worry in each other's eyes. The joy of Ning Chi's advancement to a celestial devil disappeared. Davis's words were very reasonable. If the Lucifer tribe was angry, all of them in Yanshan City together would not be enough to be crushed by one finger of the other party. As for what Ning Chi had just said, they also thought that it was used to threaten Davis and Lu Donghe. In this world, the number of Sky Devil ancestor they knew was at most a dozen or so. It was indeed not related to the word countless. Martial nephew Baixian, I think we should let them live first. As for this slander, let the Lucifer tribe come out and negotiate. Let's see what they will say. Loriel glanced at Davis coldly. Hey, Davis sneered in his heart, but he did not continue to speak. His goal had been achieved. It would not do them any good to continue to anger Ning Chi. As long as he could save his life now, he would have a chance to escape from Ning Chi's clutches. Phew, Lu Donghe heaved a long sigh of relief. He did not expect that Davis's mouth would be more useful than him at the critical moment. This world, hee. Ning Chi's lips curled up slightly. He walked slowly to Davis, looked down at him, and said with a smile, Indeed, there are only a dozen celestial devils in this world, but how do you know where I went and where I came back from? What? Davis looked at Ning Chi in horror, but saw that Ning Chi's palm had already landed on his head. 9 flames Daluo palm. Terrifying immortal flames spread all over Davis's body. Davis let out a painful howl and was burned to ashes in front of everyone. Davis was dead? Everyone's eyes, including Payne's, slightly changed. An Earth Devil stage master was burned to ashes just like that? Was this the power of the Sky Demon? In the Immortal Penitentiary, Earth Demon experts were even rarer than Golden Immortals on the homeworld. They were even comparable to Grand Heavenly Immortals. That was why the scene of Davis being burned to death by the immortal flame shocked everyone present. Lu Donghe, who was kneeling next to Davis, stared blankly at the ashes on the ground. He suddenly raised his head and looked at Ning Chi in horror. Don't kill me. I know where the spider pattern went. As long as you don't kill me, I will tell you. You'd better not say it. Ning Chi smiled and flicked his finger. An immortal flame immediately landed on Lu Donghe's forehead and turned him into a fireball. Lu Donghe immediately howled in pain. He struggled for 3 breaths of time before turning into ashes. Before he died, he could not understand why Ning Chi would kill him so decisively. Davis and Lu Donghe were both dead. The group of peak human demons they brought with them had long been scared out of their wit. Their bodies trembled, afraid that they would be next. Rurier stared blankly at the 2 piles of ashes on the ground. Then, he smiled bitterly at Ning Chi. Martial nephew Baixian, that old dog Lu Donghe might really know where your 3rd senior sister went. If even he knows, then there are many people in the Lucifer tribe who know about this. Lu Donghe wants to use this information to threaten me. He won't let me go so easily. Ning Chi smiled. Rurier thought about it carefully. It did seem to make sense. Master, I'll leave these guys to you. I'll go to the Lucifer tribe. Ning Chi saluted Payne and said. Payne's eyes flashed with a hint of relief. He nodded. Go. Remember to come back and tell me if there's any news. He paused. If you see Wanli and Zhu Feng, help me bring them back. Okay. Ning Chi nodded. Martial nephew Baixian, I'll go with you. Rurier said. Young master, bring me along too. Lan Ruo looked at Ning Chi expectantly. The rest could only be envious in their hearts, because their relationship with Ning Chi had not reached this level. Now that Ning Chi had become a heavenly demon that could even kill an earth demon, they didn't dare to speak. Then let's go together. Ning Chi smiled. After a while, the Yanshan city's patriarchs saw Ning Chi and the other 3 leaving the Demon King's mansion. When they saw this scene, they were all stunned. Ever since Ning Qi entered the Demon King's mansion, they noticed that the Demon King's mansion had become quiet. Now they saw Ning Qi and the other three unscathed. They couldn't help but be curious. What exactly happened inside? After Ning Qi and the other three left, the group of perfected human demons brought by Davis and Lan Rua begged for mercy from Pain. Pain just looked at them indifferently and smiled. You guys planned to raid my house today. Do you think I'll let bygones be bygones and let you guys go? Beixian might dislike your cultivation, but even if I, the revered mountain demon king, Pain, is a chicken or a dog, if I want to kill you, I won't be stingy with my methods. The group of great perfection human demons were both shocked and enraged to hear that. However, due to Ning Qi's departure, the aura that had been suppressing them had long since disappeared, and they had regained their mobility. In the next instant they scattered in all directions, but Pain's speed was far, far faster than theirs. The person who escaped the furthest was only 10 zhang away from the Demon King's mansion and was already beheaded by Pain. Lord Pain. The various patriarchs drew in a breath of cold air when they saw this scene. Pain had already acted, yet Davis and Lu Donghe were nowhere to be seen. There was only one possibility. Those two fellows might have already died in the Demon King's mansion. Pain calmly swept a glance at everyone. After that, he turned and returned to the Demon King's mansion. Not long after, those clans surrounding the Demon King's mansion retreated one by one. They no longer dared to act like they were spectators. They exchanged information privately, wanting to know the situation of Davis and Lu Donghe. Were they dead or alive? This matter was very important to them. If these two died in Yenshan City, the entire Yenshan City would have to face the wrath of the Lucifer tribe. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.